Good morning. I'd like to call to order this Sweetwater County Board of County Commissioners meeting this Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. There is a quorum present, and would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Morning, everybody present. As we move forward, our first agenda item is to approve the agenda. Commissioners, anything to amend? Nothing amended. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
The agenda for today, Commissioners Lloyd.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to accept the agenda as presented.
Have a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next agenda item, approval of the minutes from April 20th, 2021. Commissioners, your pleasure.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Toman to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item under tab B is approval of the bills. Commissioners, your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Smith.
I move that we approve the EALs, the bonds, the abates and rebates, and hospital expenditures as presented.
We have a motion to approve as presented, the EALs, the bonds, abates, rebates, and hospital expenditures. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, we have, under tab C, we have public hearing with budget amendments. And I believe to help present that this morning is Ms. Bonnie Berry. Good morning, Ms. Berry,
Good morning, Chairman
and
and
welcome.
Commissioners. I'm going to move this.
I yield the floor to you.
Thank you. All right. The first budget amendment we have is Resolution 21-05-CL-01. And this budget amendment increases the expenditures in the general fund in GAL, which is guardian ad litem, by $20,000 and decreases the general county reserves cash carryover by $20,000. We are out of money in the guardian ad litem account. So we're just taking money out of reserves to move it into that account. And just to remind you, we will have to have a public hearing before this can be voted on. Are there any questions on this one?
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Berry?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I have a
Lloyd.
question for Ms. Berry. So with the reduction of this 7,006, this amount, how does this, what does this what does this bring down our general account to and in our reserves?
I don't know. I would have to look and get back to you.
That's no problem, Ms.
So
Berry.
I have not
You
looked
always
at
do,
that.
so I have no worry in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. Any other questions, Commissioners? No further questions at this time. I'll open up the floor for a public hearing regarding this budget amendment, which is an expenditure increase from the general fund to guardian ad litem of $20,000. Floor is open, public hearing. Floor is open. Floor is open. Last call. Public hearing closed. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? Commissioner
I
Dunlap.
would move to approve the $20,000 from reserves to the guardian ad litem.
We have a motion to approve the budget amendment request of moving $20,000 from reserves to, or from reserves into guardian ad litem. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Motion carries. Good. Next one, Ms. Berry.
Next one is Resolution 21-05-CL-02. This is a Sweetwater County budget amendment to increase the expenditures in the general fund in public defender and decrease the general county reserves cash carryover in the amount of $7,614.67. Again, we are out of money. We've received the bill for the public defender from the state's office, and it exceeded our budget by the $7,614.67.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Berry, commissioners? Questions? With no questions at this time, I'll open up the floor for public hearing on the recommendation of Resolution 21-05-CL-02, which is a budget amendment, which is $7,614.67 out of county reserves, and the money will be moved into the public defender's account. Floor is now open for public hearing. Floor is open for public hearing. Last call, public hearing regarding Resolution 21-05-CL-02. Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, your pleasure regarding this resolution.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield.
make a motion to approve Resolution 21-05-CL-02 as presented.
We have a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, you have another one, Ms. Berry.
I do. Resolution 21-05-CL-03 is a Sweetwater County budget amendment. This budget amendment increases the expenditures in the general fund in clerk of district court operating in the amount of $25,000 and decreases the expenditures in the general fund clerk of district court payroll by $25,000. So moving expenses from payroll into operating in the clerk of district court department. This is due to jury fees. They have exceeded the amount budgeted for the year already. And the clerk of district court anticipates more jury trials before the end of the year. So that is why she is requesting this budget amendment to move money from payroll to operating to cover those jury fee costs.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Berry. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Berry regarding this budget amendment? I've got a question. Do you know if this amount will take care of it for the rest of the year? If there's any-
It should, yes, yes. So we figured out how much she anticipates in the jury costs for the rest of the year, and then also her the other operating expenditures for the rest of the year. So this should cover it.
Thank you very much. With that, any other questions, commissioners? Okay, we'll open up the floor for public hearing regarding the recommendation for Resolution 21-05-CL-03, a budget amendment, which moves $25,000 from the clerk of district court payroll to the clerk of district court operating. Floor is open, public hearing. Floor is open for public hearing. Last call, public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? Commissioner Toman,
I would move to accept the resolution.
have a motion by Commissioner Toman to approve Resolution 21-05-CL-03, which is budget amendment for the clerk of courts. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have one more, Ms. Berry.
Last one of the day.
Thank you.
Resolution 21-05-CL-04. This is a Sweetwater County budget amendment to increase the expenditures in the general fund in the grant projects by $419,441. Revenue will also increase in the general fund in the grant revenue by $419,441. This is due to some unanticipated grants that we received, specifically the CARES Act funding. We did not know about that when we set the budget last year. So we received a lot more grant funding and spent a lot more grant dollars than we had anticipated when we set the budget.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Questions for Ms. Berry, commissioners? I see our grants manager is with us. Ms. Marshall, do you have anything else to add for that resolution?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, actually, this was probably specifically for some of the charitable relief. The actual amount of unanticipated grants is much, much higher, but it was offset by other projects that were not completed. And I just want to emphasize, it's not coming out of reserves, it's a wash. There's no match money or anything.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Marshall or Ms. Berry at this moment? With no further questions at this time, I'll yield the floor to public hearing regarding this resolution. 21-05-CL-04. Floor is open for public hearing. Last call, public hearing regarding this resolution. Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, what's your pleasure regarding this resolution?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield,
make a motion to approve Resolution 21-05-CL-04 as presented.
we have a motion to approve the resolution as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Good job, Ms. Berry.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks for being here this morning. Have a good one. All right, with that, Commissioners, moving on with our agenda. Next up, and a little ahead of time. Can you believe that?
No.
County residents' concerns. So at this time, the floor will be yielded for county residents' concerns. And if there's any county resident that would like to approach the commission, please feel free to come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and feel free to share with us. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity, and I wanted to first off just thank you for your time and thank you for your service. And I wanted to bring a brief update to you about the legislative session that we had. And actually, I think that overall it was a good session. And you'll see I left a little card there for you that kind of gives a summary of the accounts of the state. It's a quick little handy reference guide. If you have any questions about that, you can relay those to me, or Clark Stith is a good person to talk with. Also, Don Richards with the LSO office. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions that you have specifically. I wanted to bring up also that the state of our economy and projections as far as Craig. Many of you are aware of the Craig report, which is a consensus revenue estimate group. We received an email with the update April 29th, so a recent update that I'll just read a couple lines here of the summary. It says current revenue collections directed to the general fund exceeded the January 2021 Craig projections by $45 million or 4.6%. The BRA is trending much further ahead, exceeding the forecast by 25.7 million or 16.2%. This means that the general fund and the BRA are $71 million ahead of pace. And additionally, there's additional $25.2 million in net capital gains from pooled income. So what that says is even since January, the January Craig report, things are looking up, they're getting better, and things are progressively getting much better. So it brings me to my second point. I wanted to invite you to a discussion that I'm going to be hosting, which is May 12th at the Green River, at the library here in Green River. And the topic of that discussion is going to be building on work that was previously done with the County Commission, City of Green River, and the City of Rock Springs. There's an IME report that was presented or that was done in 2012 that talks about the alternate route and the possibilities of different options for alternate route between Rock Springs and Green River. And the reason why I bring this up and the reason why I bring it up now is because I've got another presentation that we have here that's a slide sheet that shows that with 5 bills and 1 executive order, the state of Wyoming and its citizens and our entities have received about $8 billion in funds from directly. So it comes down to about $4.5 billion to government entities. That includes the ARP, and we're going to talk about the $174 million that should be coming to counties also, or to the cities and counties. And businesses have received about $2 billion and individuals have received about 1.45. That includes a paycheck protection program, all the federal funding, all the programs. So $8 billion to Wyoming, our entities, our citizens, and our individuals. So it's good news, I guess, for in some senses. I guess if you want to look at the total national debt, that's a whole different story, the dollar and the yen and all that other stuff. Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and all that good stuff. So anyway, if you're also not aware, the state of Wyoming passed legislation that allows the University of Wyoming to start staking cryptocurrency, which is a very interesting, I guess it's a real advancement in what localities and governments allowed to do. So I think it's a good opportunity. Anyway, I wanted to open myself up for questions. I also wanted to make you aware that, I want to push this discussion. I think building on work that has been done in the past. I would love to see, the county commissioners there and some support for that. The reason for this is that included in this funds, and we talk about the American Rescue Plan, is there's the American Jobs Plan, and we can talk about whether or not the previous administration had an infrastructure bill in mind or not, but it looks like this administration is going to get one done. So I can tell you that WYDOT has already applied under the American Jobs Plan because the federal government is looking for the big projects. And I can tell you WYDOT has already applied for the I-25, I-80 interchange, which is $350 million. They've already applied to reroute Interstate 80 away from Arlington along Highway 30. That's another huge hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars project. So when we look at the whole scheme of things, other states are applying for billions and billions of dollars of projects. This state is applying for hundreds of million dollars projects. The rerouting or actually an alternate route between Rock Springs and Green River would cost, about $80 million. That would be a small project in terms of federal government, very small. We're talking about already the WYDOT has already submitted application to, like I said, do the I-25, I-80 interchange, $350 million. And when we talk about stuff like that, people say, oh, okay, well, why would we do that? Why would we spend those tax dollars on that? We still have to plow our roads. We still have to do this other stuff. Well, I can tell you that WYDOT has submitted that application knowing that they're not going to, continue their STIP plan. They're still moving forward with their state transportation infrastructure plan. I mean, so these are in addition to, it's kind of like saying to the city of Rock Springs, you're not going to, you're going to stop taking care of your parks now that the First Interstate Bank is being approved, or because Bitter Creek's being improved now, you're going to, your people are, you're going to lay people off because that money is not being spent properly. Well, the fact of the matter is it's two separate monies, two separate accounts, two separate, spending authorities. So what I like to bring up to people is this, is that, it would be nice if the YDOT would adopt a new state highway, and do a state highway, because you can take a state highway all the way from Green River, all the way out to Little America. You can just take a state highway from Rock Springs all the way out to Point of Rocks. And it'd be nice if there was a state highway in between. I think it's an infrastructure deficiency from the state. I think it's a federal deficiency. So at our county, we can either, approach this as a county, or we can approach it, individually. We could try to go to the state. But ideally, the gist of this discussion is really to build on the previous discussion and look at the possibilities of funding outside of current budgets, and the possibility of moving a project like this forward from the federal government perspective. So again, I want to invite you, I want to open myself up to any questions, and my contact information is on the form. Feel free to reach out to me. I know that there'll be some people there in support of and also opposed to, for various reasons. So I love the conversation. I think it's going to be a great one. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative. Before we move on, just stay at the podium. Generally, concerns and comments from the community, we listen, and not often respond to, because it's our time.
Sure.
And that type of thing. But I think this is a unique situation of what you're presenting, and you've offered 4 questions. So if it's okay with my fellow commissioners, I would yield the floor to any commissioner who has any questions regarding either one of the 2 topics that Representative Baker brought up. So with that, I'll yield the floor to questions to commissioners. Go ahead, Commissioner Shanefield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming and updating us. I appreciate
Absolutely.
your time this morning. I do have 2 questions, and they are in regards to this alternate route.
Okay.
I will be out of town next week during your meeting, and so I won't be able to make it. So
Appreciate the
I
discussion.
appreciate the opportunity to ask them now. But
Absolutely.
so the first question I have is, what plans do you have, or thinking of for maintenance of this road? Because that, I would think, would probably fall back on the county in the future. And then my other question is why should we as a whole, as a community, pick this project as an infrastructure project as opposed to some of the other things that we've been working on? We have that Middle Baxter Road project and the water line that we're really looking forward to. So can you kind of compare the 2 and give me why we should support this instead?
Absolutely. And I appreciate the question there. It's a valid question. One, if I can take them in reverse. So it's that conversation of, is one project better than another? Again, there are different monies, there are different pools of money. This current application and the possibility of maybe doing the Baxter Road, doing something like that with this special session money, moving that stuff forward. Again, the focus of the CARES Act, it's the ARP money, which is the American Rescue Plan, versus the American Jobs Plan. Okay, the American Rescue Plan is some of that's going to be spent for infrastructure. The Wyoming legislature is going to meet for special session, and these are this project, the project for the Baxter Road, water. The city of Green River has a corridor project. Those are all good projects that would be submitted and valid for this ARP plan and this project, and for these monies. The American Jobs Plan is different. Okay, that's an infrastructure building. Okay, now, running water to an airport and doing it for economic reasons is one thing, okay? But running the interstate is a national corridor, and it's recognized as such. When we talk about the interstate and the discussion revolving around the interstate, and I can show you the charts, there's been 5 fatalities in Sweetwater County just in this year alone, okay? Our people are dying on this road, and that is a case that could be made federally. It could be made at the state level, because when you look at the deaths in the state, there's been as many deaths in our county than there is in the whole Cheyenne area. So one of the reasons that they can go and say, hey, we need this money in Cheyenne, we need to do this outside of everything else, this American Jobs Plan, okay? And this is the first of many that the current administration is working on. Okay, and so again, it's different money, different funds, different projects. Okay, good idea. The maintenance, okay, that would be something that we'd have to discuss. One, the maintenance would be, again, I've discussed with YDOT what it would be. I personally think it should be a state highway. That would take YDOT buy-in. That's a bigger buy-in. That's a bigger discussion. I think that it could be done if we were united and we approached YDOT with that discussion. Because really the next phase and part of the discussion is the NEPA study, the environmental study. Once we get that study, we can move forward with everything else, whether it's moving forward with a state highway or a county road. So the maintenance would be really, depending on the traffic count, it would be either a 10 or 15-year overlay. And then of course, like the snowplow. So probably one snowplow. YDOT estimates one snowplow. That's what they estimate to maintain it. So I would think that the county could do it with the same amount. The overlay is the same way. With the county, you have 1,400 miles of county road already. I would say that, this will be an important 14 miles, to add. It would be a great opportunity for our county. There's private land between, if you've taken the old Lincoln Highway after the hill, right there, where you go up over you go to the hill, there's an area that's got Exxon and some of the other places there. That's private land. That could absolutely be developed. I think that part of the proposal is making sure that the route goes through that land, because I think that, the previous discussions were that they wanted to see 420, I think, or 480 houses in that area. So it'd be, development between the two communities. Part of the expense of the project is the fact that the utilities, the water lines, some of this other stuff runs through it. So when people say, oh, just do the gravel road, well, we can't. We still, if we're going to do a gravel road up to county standard or up to standard, we still have to address the utilities. So we can't just say, okay, we're going to just throw gravel on it and do a county road. If it's going to be done, it has to be done right. So again, great questions. I appreciate the discussion. If I didn't answer your questions, please follow up.
Commissioners, other questions? Commissioners? I do have one. There was a previous study done on putting a road between the two communities. Am I correct?
There was two, actually, one in 2008, and that one was done. Torrey Thomas, the current interim engineer with YDOT in our district, was a part of that study. And then there was one done in 2012, and Commissioner John Kolb was a part of that study. And so was Radosevich and a couple other county people.
Yeah, what was the final recommendations out of those studies?
There were a couple things. The city of Green River, because of lack of time, actually followed the old Lincoln Highway. So they came in up through here and came back down. And the practical implications of that are that the road going up to the library and all that would have to be addressed also. It really, the project can be downsized and pared down by bringing the road in simply with an interchange, a loop interchange, where down by the where the interstate comes in. So we can save about $10 million saving off of that. There are alternate routes that are available, and that would really be the goal of the county, is to pick a route. We could either go under where there's construction right now at mile marker 97, those bridges. It would go from Purple Sage to mile marker 97 and then cross from the south side to the north side underneath that bridge that they're doing construction on right now, and then follow the old Lincoln Highway in. Like I said, that study took it all the way up through the graveyard, or up by the graveyard, back down. So there was a lot of improvement, I think, that the city was seeking to have done along with the road itself. But really, the study is it's very feasible. It's going to take a little bit of money. I mean, we have to pick a little bit of a route, but there's very minimal hurdles as far as landowners. It's Rock Springs, Gracie, and BLM. That's it. I mean, when we talk about a huge project like that and trying to address landowners and that, there's really only two of them. So I think we're good there. It's going to take obviously money, but really, the discussion is that, again, YDOT is seeking big projects. They want these big projects. They want to put them on the table. They want to have them there so that they can submit application to the federal government, because the federal government they look at an $80 million project as a small project. So, I mean, a $350 million is a small project. They're doing projects and looking at projects that are multi-billion dollars of projects because of this American Jobs Plan. So it's very feasible. The ultimate cost, it was $70 million to bring it up by the graveyard. I think it can be pared down, and it could easily be done for $60 million if it's done with an interchange right there at the interstate.
So will they redo the study then?
No, I mean, it would be built upon and really the final route would be concluded. And that's part of the discussion. The study already has, the next steps. The next steps is NEPA, the right of way from YDOT, obviously acquiring land from BLM and Rock Springs Grazing, and then moving forward with the construction. The part of the construction is like I said, that mile marker 97, that bridge, if it's going to go from the now or north to the south side right there, we'll have to redo those bridges. So it's about $10 million to redo that. If not, if it's going to stay on the north side and run it from exit 99, the Cruel Jocks along the north side all the way, you don't have to acquire that, but then there's another private landowner that you have to address. So
Okay, thank you. And
absolutely.
just for clarification, I heard you correctly when you said this highway connecting road between Rock Springs and Green River, funding for it would not compete with our other economic development funding projects, i.e. Baxter Road for getting water out there, i.e. the loop for Green River, or getting sewer out to the Loves, because I know there's conversations along that line that if we can get those areas, there'll be greater impact and stabilization to the county over the future, And so am I understanding correctly that this project is looking at a complete different pot of money than what those other projects are?
We as a legislator, we could go and seek any pot of money. I could seek general funds money. I could seek AML dollars, which is what I fought for with Bitter Creek. But my proposal is honestly not even to seek the dollars in the American Jobs Plan, which is this next one. I would like the commission to get on board so that I can go down and fight for the NEPA funding for this study, so that we can get something on the books for the next time, the American Jobs Plan 2 that's coming next year type thing. So that's really my goal, not to try to pull away from the current, thing, but to really get something on the table so that we can catch the next pool of money. And really with the county on board and we get this, I'd love to move forward with trying to, out of this $1 billion that we're going to be appropriating in a special session, I'd like to try to go and get $100,000 for a study. I'd like to do that. And I would also like to fight and support for, the Baxter money. And I hope others are doing that. But that's, we can try to get any pool of money that we want. The American Rescue Plan, a lot of that money, they want to go to water project. They want to go to broadband. They want to do that stuff. This American Jobs Plan is different. It's an interstate infrastructure, roads, bridges. And again, this is round one, in my opinion, of the second round that will be coming next year. And my goal would be, again, not to try to secure funding for this road on this one, because again, we're a little bit behind the game. But if we can get this in place, to have this project on the table so that the next time they're applying for these, they can apply for this one also, because they're going to submit these projects. So
That's all I have for questions.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your work
Absolutely.
at the legislator. The one question I have regarding legislation work is I know you're very busy down there, and I do know occasionally people contact you regarding stuff.
Absolutely.
Do we have all the right contact information
I,
for you
you know,
when we're at the legislature?
I think so. I think, it just depends if there's a certain bill or a certain email that I missed their reference, I'd love to have you follow up, but, absolutely, when session's going and things are going and I do submit, I can tell you this, that I sit on 2 committees that meet during the same day. And if it's a Tuesday or Thursday, I'm basically at the Capitol from beginning to end, and that's fine. Other days I have a little more flexibility, but at the same time, I was down there trying to work within the timeframes of trying to get bills and ideas and amendments. And I only proposed 2 bills. I ran a bill that had to do with education, and the other bill that I ran actually had to do with Interstate 80 and speed limits. But I apologize if I missed an email on a specific topic. I
I think
apologize.
it's more along the line is finding time to respond back to when we do send an email and that type of thing. Because when you're down there during legislative session, a bill comes up that day and might text you and say, hey, we need your support on this. And we don't hear back until we hear maybe take a look at the vote. And we kind of go, I wonder how that happened.
Right.
But anyhow, I just had to ask that question when you came in and visited with us, and that's.
Absolutely. I know that there was a little bit of question about the airport districts bill and that bill. I think that bill needs a lot of work, honestly. I think that there's a lot of stuff there for discussion in the future. But if you look at it, I tried to follow suit with the likes of like Tom Walters, who's a pilot and on the, the Transport and Aeronautics Commission. So I know that there are a couple bills that, that local people were really interested in, education bills and stuff like that. Like I said, I'd love to continue those conversations.
Sounds good. But anyhow, I just had to ask.
Absolutely. I
Thank you,
apologize.
Representative.
Absolutely.
Commissioners, anything else?
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you
Thank you.
coming in.
Yeah.
We were wondering if anybody was or not
Yeah.
from the legislative group, but we appreciate it. I too will be out of town next week, but
Okay.
I'm sure, we'll keep an eye on things, at least I will. And I will have conversations with our city leaders and kind of find out and get a feel for where they're at and that type of thing.
Great.
And I think also will be real key for me. I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, but, I worry about unfunded mandates or unfunded roads that we have to take care of and that type of thing, and cost to the county when we're basically not getting the help we expect from this or should be getting from the state and that type of thing in our minds. I mean, legislators feel differently. They
What,
need to go along that way, but I will say I do respectfully disagree with you. It wasn't that good of a session. Anytime our direct distribution and dollars to the county and citizens is decreased, whether it's recommended by the governor and or not supported by legislators and that type of thing. I mean, I don't feel we're entitled to it, but we look to that, and I also look for, the issues of increased revenue and ways to increase revenue. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I take just point of concern when you say, oh, it was a great session. I don't believe it was a great session for people in Sweetwater County and across the state when I talk with my fellow commissioners, representatives. So I will be watching, we'll be listening, and wholeheartedly, I have a little different expectation than maybe probably most commissioners, and that is the representatives that are in Sweetwater County. I expect them to represent the citizens of Sweetwater County. I expect we get voted in as commissioners to represent the people of Sweetwater County, and we do. I honestly believe we do what's right for the people in Sweetwater County. And when we ask our representatives, hey, this is what Sweetwater County people want. I understand you have to do some things with the state, but I believe Sweetwater County comes first and it comes ahead of the state. And my desire is to see our legislators from Sweetwater County that represent Sweetwater County to represent them and not their own interests in some cases. So I just had to say that because that's an expectation I have, but I also know that I'm probably in a minority, and I'm okay with that and that type of thing. So I want to thank you for coming in this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, and
Could
we'll keep working with you.
I just briefly say
Sure.
something? Yeah. I appreciate that. I always encourage people to, I want to grow. I want to continue to be a better legislator and do my job better. I think that, I've done that. And I think that, as county commissioners, I think that you guys will grow and we'll grow together. I think that I agree with you. There were some things that happened that were disappointments, most definitely. I think that the legislature adjourned knowing that there was going to be a special session called. So, I think that some of those things were left unaddressed, knowing that things like, this $174 million distribution to the counties was going to come. I mean, some of these things, I think the legislature knew that stuff and they didn't want to preempt, discussions. Also, there was, there still is a little bit of, a question as far as how the money can be spent. So, when the state is really ambiguous and really, they're not quite sure of what the direction the money should go, it's really appropriate, I think, to just kind of take back. And so the special session thing is something that's very, it's appropriate. I think, continue to express your concerns. I agree with you. I want to fight for Sweetwater County. What frustrated me, I think, in getting involved initially in the legislature is, it's a talking point of one of your former colleagues, John Colby, used to always say, Sweetwater County, we don't really get our part of the pie. And what, sitting on revenue committee, I'm familiarizing myself much more with the numbers. And if you look at the property valuation over the last decade, Campbell County has always been number one. They're always up there at $5.5 billion, property valuation. Sweetwater County over the last decade has either been number 2 or number 3 consistently, depending on where sublet the price of natural gas. They either jump above us or they're right below us, right? So we as a county have been number 2 or number 3 consistently as a decade. This is one of those things like this road where I say, let's go and fight for Sweetwater County and bring some more of that part of that pie back. Because I can tell you, this $1 billion for the special session is going to get spent. It's going to get appropriated. I think we need to work together and bring like the Baxter Road, some of these things to fruition.
Well, and I agree with that. And I think what drives my feeling about it is I'm looking for a way as a commissioner to stabilize our economy in Sweetwater County instead of the ups and downs. And I look for what is that going to take? And if projects are going to compete themselves out of, let's just say, one pot of money rather than there being several others, then I'm going to prioritize. But I'm also going to watch and make sure that projects that aren't a priority, they're important, but they're not that number one priority to stabilize the economy in Sweetwater County so we don't have the booms and busts. We can only do that through economic development. We can only do that through manufacturing and industry, bringing those in. We cannot rely totally on Trona. And we also found out what happens when we rely on the extractables. It's just up and down. So I watch those things very carefully and very careful where I place my personal support as a commissioner. If this commission decides as a whole, put their support somewhere else, I will, I may say I disagree with it, but I won't be disagreeable. I'll support them 110% and that type of thing. So I'm just letting you know where I'm at. I'm not speaking for this entire commission, but I'm speaking for myself as an individual of what I've observed and what I've worked with. And I will guarantee you, I may disagree with legislators in general, but I won't be disagreeable, Representative.
I appreciate that. And, we have a long history and a history you may not even remember, but you were my principal. And beyond that, you were actually, somewhat of an employer because I was an assistant. I was a substitute teacher while you were a principal at the alternative. Also, if you remember this, I used to work in the video department and manage the video department over in the grocery store. I used to rent videos to you and your wife. That was a long time ago. So I don't know if you remember that, but I remember that because I was a student in your school and I remember renting you videos. So, I don't want to be disagreeable either. I like to put things aside and really, my passion is more, it's more about fighting for our community. I think there's absolutely an economic development. Like I said, there's a whole section that's included in this. It's private land. Also, when we talk about safety, I know that you've been stuck behind the semis going 65. And I know that, the danger doesn't pass anybody here that travels back and forth on that road. It would be nice if our communities and our employers didn't have to watch the snowstorm and send their people home early because they're worried about the road being closed or a semi, messing it up for everybody. So it's just those little things. I appreciate that. That's part of the discussion. There's a lot of people outside of county employees that may have different opinions on this road. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
And thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative.
Thank you.
bet.
Appreciate it.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We just welcome the opportunity to meet with our legislators from Sweetwater County before you go to the legislature. Maybe that's something we need to facilitate next year.
Absolutely. And possibly if this Baxter Road and stuff is really on the books, if the governor's office is behind that sort of stuff, we should get something together before the special session. The special session is supposed to be the week before, I believe, Cheyenne Frontier Day. So I think it's the July 11th is when they're planning on starting. So, and again, the nice thing about this just quickly is, that first CARES Act money, the federal government had the strings, as you're well aware of really appropriating those dollars almost immediately by the end of the year. That's not the case with this ARP, the American Rescue Plan. 2024, I think, is the date that we have to appropriate that. So hopefully the legislature can maybe slow that spending down a little bit and maybe focus it a little more.
Very good. All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks
absolutely.
for your time.
Yeah.
Our
Thank you.
cards are available in the box over there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, the floor is still open for public comment.
Thanks.
Please come forward and introduce yourself. And
Mr. Chairman, you're no longer ahead of schedule. I just thought I would make that point.
that was my fault.
I'll just take,
Didn't last long.
just take 1 minute if I could. Once again, I apologize. This was another one of those issues that we couldn't get on the agenda because of timing. But at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, I brought an issue with respect to the archive materials, the books which are downstairs. Last Thursday, I was able to meet with the county museum. They are very excited to potentially take those books. They are going to begin inventorying them over the next couple of weeks, and they will be on the agenda at the next meeting to address you with respect to that.
Very
So
good.
just wanted to follow up on that.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Good
Thank you,
news.
Mr. Slaughter. Any questions for Mr. Slaughter?
Thank you.
All
for
right, appreciate your work on that. Thank you. Any other public comments, concerns? Anything come in, Ms. Lane? Anything else? With that, I'll close this portion of the agenda and move on. Commissioners, you ready to do reports? All right, let's get started. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, fellow commissioners in Sweetwater County. And being a Star Wars fan, I'll be the first to wish you a happy May the 4th be with you. Good to be here today. With my liaison assignments with Southwest Counseling, House Enrolled Act 56, the behavioral health law was signed into law and will take effect in July of 2022. It's an effort to try to redesign the funding system for behavioral health throughout the state, which definitely needs to be looked at. And well, I look at the makeup of the committee that's going to be working on that. It's I'm not quite as hopeful that something will be done, but work needs to be done there. So I guess any step in the right direction, any step forward is a step in the right direction. So looking forward to them making that happen. Also, the modular buildings, so the city permit ran out, expired for the modular buildings for Southwest Counseling out on their Foothill property. They're awaiting those, last I heard, last week. So hopefully we get those done. It's been a long time since those have been sitting there and waiting, and we shouldn't be too much longer though. Board of Health, the COVID vaccinations are back in their building. They are very appreciative of the help that they received and cooperation that was extended by the events complex. And they said things were just excellent out there. They really, things went well, and they're very appreciative of the help that they received. They do have, or as of last week, had over 1,000 of the Johnson & Johnson vaccines, which they're now administering again, and also 2,300 Pfizer vaccines available. So encourage folks to get out so that are appropriate and get their vaccinations. And then more than anything, the Department of Health is getting back to more normal public health activities, things that they had to put on the back burner as COVID took center stage for so long. The ambulance, waiting on our cities as they work through their budget process to let us know if they would like to participate in funding for the ambulance and what role they would like to play after they provide some funding. And then from Gene Legursky, he wanted to let us know that ravens are smart. And I appreciate that. He even sent us a little article about that. So he's had some problems with them out at the Justice Complex, and has been amazed at how smart they are. So he did a little research and shared it with us, and turns out ravens are really smart. So that's my report. Any questions, I'd be happy to take.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Questions for Commissioner Smith? All right, moving forward. Commissioner Shanefield, good morning.
Good morning, thank you. So I continue to meet with Commissioner Lloyd and Gary around HR issues. The events complex meeting was right after the same day as our last meeting, and so there's really nothing new to report from that last meeting report for them. It was a good board meeting, quick and efficient. The museum, they wanted to let the public know that they are accepting collection donations if you have anything that that may fit into a collection. They would love to see it, and they'll accept, they're accepting things quite frequently from the public. They've also continued their online and in-person outreach and have gotten into the high school again in the last couple of weeks. SCDC, I have a report that I need to pull up from Kayla. So National Economic Development Week is May 9th through the 15th, and SEDC invites everyone to join the governor on Wednesday at 1:30 for virtual proclamation signing. There's a link on the SEDC's Facebook page and Instagram page to that. And then SEDC will be celebrating National Economic Development Week and proclamation signing that we partnered with a couple of other entities to get out. So Kayla will be up later to talk about that. The Grow Home Sweetwater is partnering with SEDC to host 4 business roundtable discussions, and the registration is available. That's at www.growhomeconnect.com. And you can also reach out to Kayla if there's any businesses that are listening that would like to be a part of that entrepreneurial communities program. It's a really great opportunity. The industrial development study is complete for the Middle Baxter Road project, and Eric and Kayla are going to be presenting to us at our next meeting on May 18th. The next radio interview with Johnny Kay is going to be May 13th at 8 a.m. And there's lots of information coming out on SEDC on their Instagram and Facebook page. They've been really active on that. So check that for more information and additional things that come up. I want to remind everybody, just to keep in the back of their minds, that we are going to be talking about 6 penny next meeting. And so that's something to think about. And then I also have been meeting with the NACO Broadband Task Force. We've been meeting fairly regularly and have been working with our subcommittees. We're going to have recommendations coming out next month, and I will bring the report to share with everyone and talk about those recommendations as they come forward. And then I also just received some information from the sheriff that next week, which is May 9th through the 15th, is Peace Officer Memorial Week. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Shanefield. Questions for Commissioner Shanefield? Commissioners? Good report. Thank you. Commissioner Lloyd, you're up.
All right, I want to just start with where I always do with recognizing some of our community stuff. And just think it's important to recognize that the Green River High School cheerleading team actually went to nationals, first team ever from Wyoming. It took a 6th and a 5th. I think that's pretty exciting news. Also, last night, today's always one of my favorite days in the last couple of years of being a commissioner, as we get to select the scholarship winners later today. And I'll be honest, I'm one of those people that sometimes get worried about our current generation. When I drive up to the high school, I feel I see a new car lot. I don't feel like I see the old 1979 Chrysler LeBaron type cars that were driven in the lot when I was a 92 high school grad. But I'll tell you, last night, Tom Wilson, a longtime administrator at the high school awards banquet, talked about the group of kids that are currently coming out of at least Green River High School. And I'm sure as I looked at scholarship applications from Rock Springs, felt the same, that it's kind of exciting to see the kids that are coming out and actually have regained a lot of faith in the younger generation, and really excited about what they're doing as we come into these graduation weeks and we get to recognize these scholarship folks, because there's some amazing kids really out there. So want to honor and thank them a little bit. So as far as board meetings, the library, since we've last met, I met with the library, just kind of talked about how things were going. Great numbers at the Children's Discovery, at the Discovery Center, over 1,150 visits since its opening. And that's even kind of in a limited opening, reserve your spot numbers at this point as we continue to go through the end of COVID. But just a really great program. Last week, I also met with Joint Communications, 911 Center, discussed, really just discussed their training program was a big topic, and their new employee training. And it was also that last month was the month that honored dispatchers. And I just want to thank all of our Joint Communication employees, because they do a really integral service, and they are a great part of our first responder team. And I want to thank them for all the work that they do. For Conservation District, last week we had our annual Bitter Creek meeting and talked about the current status of the Bitter Creek with all its partners. I thought that went very well, and if any of the commissioners would like a copy of the handout, let me know and I can email those to you and get those to you. I was able to make the majority of the meeting, but wasn't able to stay for the entire meeting, but I do appreciate the Conservation District for the invite to that meeting. As far as meeting, we've met with lots of directors and department heads over the last couple of weeks. Also had some, I thought we were actually discussing Six Penny today, so I had some extensive talks with Councilman West from Rock Springs and Reed Clevenger to prepare for that today. So, but I'll be really prepared for the next meeting when we have that discussion. Also, just want to, in an attempt to become a little more open to the community, because I know we say our doors are always open. You know, we don't get as many calls as I think people think we do, or emails. And so I'm excited that on May 12th, I will be at the Golden Hour Senior Center having lunch and having just a commissioner discussion with all the folks at Golden Hour. We're going to start making that a bi-monthly event, and on the off months, there'll be the second Wednesday of every month. On the off months, I'll be doing the same at Young at Heart. I also have a date set later this month that I'll just be at Coltrane Coffee from like 8 to 9:30. I think I'm looking at like the 28th, 29th of the month, just to let constituents have a chance to come and visit with me in a very open setting. And as we kind of work also towards strategic planning and development, I kind of want to set once a month where I just have an open day in my office that the employees of our county know, so they have a chance to come and visit with me and share their ideas. I'm working on a survey to get out to the employees to elicit their ideas, but the first day I'll do that will be the 25th of May at 3 to 5, and I'll be inviting employees if they have ideas for where they think what the important parts are. I think it's important to get their input as we go through this. So those are just some of the processes I'm throwing out there to try to become a little more open, available to our constituents. And then lastly, as far as the rest of my liaisons, my notes kind of got out of order today. Also, with Lauren, have met with Gary about HR issues. Christina and I have a tendency when we meet to plan 30, or I think I'll drop in and maybe visit for 30 or 45 minutes, and we end up visiting for like 2.5 hours. But they're great conversations, and what I'm really excited, and I think we need to be prepared for, and Christy and I have talked about, is kind of something that Representative Baker talked about, the Americans Care Act money coming in. And I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of that plan that came out of the legislature, out of the state, out of the government. But I'll be honest, if we're going to get it, I want to use it effectively. And I think one of the things that Christine and I have talked about is when that we start getting a little closer to really taking a look at that money, is maybe to look at creating a committee to really drive where that money goes, because it's significant. I mean, we're talking, I think, and Christina, you let me know if I'm wrong, but I think it's $4.2 million 2 different times. Yep. So it's really 8.4, but 8.2, so 4.1, 4.1 in 2 segments, if I remember right. This is significant. And, you know, with some of the infrastructure abilities we can do with it, we really can make an impact that's lasting on this community. And I think we need to be very strategic and very thoughtful as we move forward, because I think this could be huge for us. And we need to be effective stewards of that money and really represent our constituents at that time. And then lastly, met with Gene. He sent us his report, kind of a smaller report than normal, but no major concerns with Gene and his department. So with that, that's all I have today. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Commissioners, any questions for Commissioner Lloyd? I will say, Commissioner Lloyd, that the parking lots do look a lot different than they did in years earlier, because I remember parking lots of 49 Plymouths, 53 Fords, and 67 Chevys.
That's when they were brand new, huh?
Huh?
The 43 Fords were brand new back then, right?
I know it.
Yeah.
See, I was expecting a comment of the old Fred Flintstone.
No.
I want to know how you observed the parking lots when you weren't born yet.
Pictures. No, these were the vehicles in the high school parking lot when I was in high school, to share with you that the students at that time were driving 49 Plymouths, which I drove, a 53 Ford, which I wrecked, and a 67 Chevy, which we turned into a racing vehicle with 427 and everything. So street racer. So those are what our high school parking lot looked like when I was a student, Commissioner Lloyd. All right. Anything else for Commissioner Lloyd? Up next, Commissioner Toman.
Well, I had a couple of exciting Zoom meetings and an exciting meeting with our attorney De Leon. I just very appreciative of his expertise and brilliance. So we'll talk about that more later. The first, one of the meetings that I actually found to be the most interesting was Gary McLean forwarded me for an hour-long Zoom meeting last Thursday or Friday on the regional economic model, the REMI model. Well, I'm familiar with that model because our coalition of local governments had a license to utilize that model to analyze the economic impacts of the federal decisions made on these federal land management plans. And I've always been a big advocate of that plan because it analyzes and can do projections as far as economic impacts. It's a dynamic model that was created in 1980 to allow local decision makers to be able to test their economic effects of their policies before they implement something. It's still based on projections, but it's better than, I think, than the IMPLAN model, the IMPLAN, that the BLM and the federal government use, because they take figures from one point in time and then try to project off of that. Whereas the IMPLAN model will kind of take a regional estimates from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then they try to take projections based on those kinds of figures. So it was interesting to see. We know that the COVID has really hurt this country. It's hurt our economies, and then the president coming in with the stroke of a pen has virtually changed our lives, is what I could say, and not in a good way. So it was interesting to see. They gave like a 40-year projection of what Wyoming is going to look like. So I don't know if it's going to hold true, but it was enlightening from the perspective of that it's going to be flatline, but it's going to be steady. I was thinking it might show up as a big dive in revenues and everything, and it still might. But they're looking at over the next 5 years, no major jumps, with a 1 to 3% change in economics, as well as a positive population increase. So we're staying pretty steady. We have slightly more births than deaths. We still have people leaving the state. So it's considered a renaissance model of economics. It's a kind of stay steady kind of a matrix that we'll be in. The top 5 growth industries in Wyoming will be private education sector, healthcare, home assistance. Number 3, wholesale trade. Number 4, transportation. 5 is warehousing. The top 3 compensated industries, guess what? Mining is still will be the highest paying jobs. Manufacturing and wholesale trade will be number 3. For the 40-year projection out to 2060, it looked like the fastest growing industries will be in healthcare, fishing, forestry, mining, and technical IT. The conclusion: it's very difficult right now to make any kind of predictions because of COVID and new presidential policies and uncertainty. So that was their disclaimer after they gave the projections. Met with John DeLeon and Mark Cott came in, and we talked about trying to draft some type of resolution stating the county's opinion, and we'll have it at the next meeting, but I did send it out to review to the commissioners. So if you have any input, we would like to get that back. Department heads, I'm getting comments back, and from the elected officials. So we appreciate your feedback from many of you, and thank you. I did get some very good comments back. Attended the Coalition of Local Governments meeting, the 6-county coalition that deals with all of our federal issues. Right now, all of the federal plans are pretty much on hold. Because of the moratorium on oil and gas, I got a list from the BLM office in Rock Springs of the companies that had provided a request to be able to bid on the oil and gas leases in March and June. Of course, they've been canceled. So there will be no new oil and gas leasing in Sweetwater County as of March sale and of the June sale. They've both been canceled. So that's very discouraging and detrimental. That moratorium, that 60-day moratorium on any kind of BLM decisions has been extended. I don't know how long it's been extended. And it's not just on the big issues. They're sending all decisions to Grand Junction, to the headquarters, to get get approval before they can approve things. They are slowly approving some things, but broadband communication lines, they're not being approved. Pipelines are not being approved. Everything is in slow motion. It's not healthy for our economy. It's shocking to me that we had things were robust and then COVID hit, and then now we're getting decisions that are penalizing actually the West with our natural resource industries. And I don't know what's going to happen, but the REMI model, I guess, gave me some hope that maybe things will not be as drastic as I thought, but we're not going to take any huge economic jumps either. Attended the Wyoming Landscape Conservation Initiative project meetings, one in Lincoln County and one in Sweetwater County, approving projects, several in Lincoln County and Uintah County. Sweetwater County has some ongoing projects, the riprapping over on the south end of town along the river. That project continues. The forestry projects in Little Mountain area and some of the juniper and conifer treatments, the BLM does have funding for that. They do have adequate funding, so we did not have to fund any of those projects. So they're trying to continue with some of those projects, although the drought and the fire risk, I'm not sure how much they can get done, except maybe spraying for cheatgrass and that type of thing. Yes, the drought, that is a huge concern for this county. Fontenelle is looking to be half filled instead of all the way filled this summer. Instead of 800,000 CFS, we're looking at 400,000. And if you drive by the back of the dam, it's just mainly the river coming in. It's not filling up very fast, and they have shut the gates down to 800 CFS. If you look at the river, we're at very low levels, and it will be kept shut down all summer, trying to get some water stored. Budget meetings, I met with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I met with the treasurer, and he's agreed to cut his budget in half. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I just thought I'd see if he was listening. He was. I attended 2 half-day meetings on Zoom. There was a statewide meeting on wildlife corridors crossing highways in Wyoming in 2017. So they did a follow-up to that meeting on the 28th and 29th. Very, very interesting meeting. They showed all the statistics of the hot spots in the state where all the accidents are happening. Then they showed the hot spots in the state where all the collared animals are getting piled up against the fence. They talked about getting more crossings of the overpass type, like at Trappers Point at Pinedale. Those things cost anywhere from $14 million to $38 million or more. And with declining revenues, they're asking for donations, but I think on the Trappers Point, they did raise the 100,000 private funding, so that was interesting. The ones in our area that are closest to us would be the one on the Cumberland through Cumberland Flats from Kimmer to Evanston. They will be looking at overpasses there for deer. And the one between LaBarge and Big Piney has been a hot spot. So they're working in those 2 areas. Because of Commissioner Johnson's concern over the Pronghorn crossing on Highway 28 north of Farson, they did go back and put in 7 double gate crossings that can be left open all winter between milepost 5 and about, I believe it was 24. They went to milepost 33. They put a smooth wire on the bottom, and they put adjustable clips so they can raise it up or down because of snow, or if winter time they need to raise it, then the summer they could put it back down when the livestock are in the area. So those are some improvements that happened in our area, but they were very, very interesting meetings, and they had PowerPoints and videos showing the different projects that they have completed that were successful, and then the projected projects that they would like to do across the state. Kind of the hot spot is around the Cody area, and in the northwestern part of the state is where they're seeing the most impact. The traffic load in Wyoming has led to a lot of this. It's increased profoundly, the number of cars that are on our highways, and that has contributed to a lot of the accidents with the wildlife. So unless you have questions, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner Toman. Questions for Commissioner Toman? Thank you. I guess I'm up next, and I see Rob's back in the room, and I'd just like to remind him we're back on time. Anyhow, thank you. Okay, up next is me. I couldn't resist Mr. Slaughter. Just to share a few things that are coming down the pike. Of course, we know about the earmarked dollars, whether it's federal or state. At the federal, the earmarked dollars are primarily going through the Democratic membership. The only Republican membership that is accepting requests are Republican representatives. The senators, our two senators, and the rest of the Republican senators at the Congress are not accepting requests on earmarks. They see them differently. So anyhow, just to share with you, we through the Middle Baxter project are requesting money through Representative Cheney's office to assist in getting money to look at the drawings and engineering coming out of the city of Rock Springs for water. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done on the front end coming out of Rock Springs to provide water out the Middle Baxter project. So there was a deadline, and SCDC with their work quickly got things put together and sent the request to Cheney's office. It's in the neighborhood of, I'll just say $3 million or less, but anyhow, it's a start for the drawings and engineering planning and that's been sent in. So that's earmark money through the feds, earmark money through the state. Somewhat is coming through, there's about several $1 million that is being presented or allowed through legislators throughout the state. And of course, we heard Representative Baker comment this morning that, this pot of money that I'm going to talk about is different than what he was talking about regarding the road between the cities. But anyhow, there's an opportunity to send a project to the state legislators. Just share with you, SCDC will be, and representation from Rock Springs and Green River will be meeting with legislators to share what the project to look like, primarily phase one, of which we'll hear about when it's presented by the study committee here in the next meeting. So I just want to share with you that those things are going on, and also not only support that for economic growth, water projects and that type of thing. There's also, I know Green River, the town of Green River is looking at Flaming Gorge Way as well as getting sewer out to Love's. That's kind of on their project list. I know talking with the mayor, their project list is the road project where they're starting on the new bridge, the crossover, creating on and off ramps. And then that road will go past the water treatment plant all the way to what is it? What road is that? Jamestown, not Jamestown, but
The barge.
yeah.
Barge road.
Anyhow, it's out there on that road, that connecting road. I'll think of it here.
I
in a
would
minute.
know that road, yes.
Yeah, we know what it is. Anyhow, but anyhow, so those are some of the things that are going on. Thank you, Commissioner Shanefield, for bringing up. I think at the next meeting, we need to get the money, dollars for special purpose. And I think we told the cities and them that not only would we have a total amount, but they also requested, I think, how much money for each entity. Is that correct?
Yeah, I told him that we probably wouldn't be able to give a solid number on that, but we could give them a general, either in a percentage or
Yeah,
some way.
so we need to be ready to move that and help those cities along so they can plan the 6 penny with that. I did want to share with everyone that the last meeting date we had on that day, there was an ambulance escort from Salt Lake City to Cheyenne, Wyoming, of course, with a Laramie County firefighter. What occurred was last summer on a wildland fire, a Laramie County firefighter was at the wildland fire. During the time he was there, he contracted COVID and was tested positive. The fireman health declined to the point where they not only put him in the hospital intensive care, but they transported him to Salt Lake last summer. And that fireman has been under care in Salt Lake all the way up until 2 weeks ago, where they finally decided his health had failed severely enough to where they felt it was time to get the individual back to Cheyenne, the fireman back to Cheyenne. So what occurred was an escort across the county, across the state by different counties. Sweetwater County had Granger Fire Department, had Wamsutter Fire Department, Rock Springs Fire Department, Green River Fire Department, Fire District 1, as well as County Fire Department that escorted from county line to county line, west to east. Carbon County also had a helicopter Flight for Life that escorted the group across Carbon County. The fireman did make it home and did get to see family, but to knowing what his progress is, I don't know. So if you saw anything, lights and sirens 2 weeks ago on the interstate across the county, that's what took care. Our fire warden was very instrumental in helping to make sure the county was involved, all the fire departments, and we did have county escort from our fire district involved. So that's what took place there, and I applaud all the firefighters and everybody that was involved across the state as well as Sweetwater County in getting this fireman back to Cheyenne so he could have whatever time he had left with his family, because he was pronounced terminal with COVID. So on another note, we have coming up the WCCA conference here in a couple weeks. I had Sally send out an email, and I wanted to talk about that during this meeting. And our county responsibility is responsibility for door prizes, 12 to 14 of them that range from $60 to $100. Also responsible for the centerpieces. Also responsible for the grand drawing prize, which is in the neighborhood of $200, figuring the price what they are, as well as bus transportation from the Holiday Inn out to down to the Bunning Building on Wednesday night for the welcome, and then on Thursday night out to the airport for the banquet. I don't know who's going to show up for state elected officials, but I do know the governor and a couple of his other state officials elected of the type 5 could be there. So this type thing. So I would like to suggest that each commissioner get 2 door prizes of $60 to $100 and that type of thing. I will work on a couple extra and that type of thing. If everybody else will each get 2, that'll give us 12. The other thing I'd like, and as I go through with this, keep in mind I'll be working with Sally as well as Marty out at purchasing, because there's probably no way we can get all donations. It would be nice, but we may have to purchase some of this stuff, so I'll work with purchasing and that type of thing. If it's okay with the commissioners, I'll work on the centerpieces and that type of thing, based on what I've observed at other conferences. I've got a couple ideas. If it's okay with the commissioners, I'll work on the grand prize as well in the neighborhood of about $200. And I have asked Commissioner Lloyd to work on the Star Bus.
I've actually tagged you in some emails that have gone back and forth this
All
morning.
right, very good. And then my question to you as commissioners, what's your thoughts about gifts for the elected officials, those that show up, the governor or the state treasurer or whoever it is? You want to give them a little bit of something from Sweetwater County?
Piece of coal.
Piece of coal, okay, very good. Trona, very good. Yeah, we can work, just something along that line for them. Normally they don't, but could be something we could do differently.
Maybe I can get some more of the tour, the spots, 100 spots in Sweetwater County that you might want to go visit. The Conservation District booklet,
Oh, okay,
right there.
the
Adventure guide.
guide.
Adventure guide.
Yeah, and I think we've all seen the adventure guide. And one of the grand prizes I'd like to put out there will be a adventure guide, as well as Jeremiah Ryman has written a book on cycling in Wyoming. I'd like to get one of those as well, and then put something else with it that may work. Also,
Dylan Bear also wrote a book about.
that's the,
Sweetwater
this
County.
is the one.
Yeah.
That's the one Mary's talking about.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right, so
And
yeah.
travel and
Good idea.
tourism may have a few other things. that
Well,
we can
and
get in.
Conservation District has a bunch, so Mary's working on that. Also, Sally's already contacted Travel and Tourism to get bags for people that show up and that type of thing. So I guess what I'm asking the commissioners is, I'm not asking for an open checkbook, but working, I'll work probably, I know most of you have other jobs to do and other things, so I'd work closely with Commissioner Tolman, Mary, I'm sorry, Sally and Marty, and work on the things. We may have to make some purchases, if you're okay with that. Very careful purchases, because not overboard. And if you as commissioners will each make sure you get 2 door prizes, we'll handle the rest, if that's okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm okay with it. And I actually think we come ahead, because if we have to spend a little money on that, that's much better than it would have been to have 5 hotel rooms in another town and meals for 3 days. So I think in travel, so what we spend on some of that will probably be significantly less than we have to put on the conference. So I think we still come ahead.
We still come ahead, yeah, and I agree with you, since we're not traveling and we don't have motel rooms, that's mileage and motel rooms for a conference, because we all live here. That's probably a fair trade around, so,
And we get to bring money into the local
well,
economy.
yeah, you're gonna have probably 60, 70, 80 commissioners show up, plus who knows who else. And if you had and that type of thing, I've already looked at what's being catered. I think you're gonna enjoy this Thursday night. I think you'll enjoy the finger food on Wednesday at the freight station. So Sally, did I miss anything? Don't think so. I'm still looking for a consensus nod that you 3 of you will take care of door prizes, 2 each, and then Commissioner Tolman, myself, Sally, and Marty will work on the rest of it. Some of it's going to be for cost, and some of it will be donated. Fair enough? All righty. I guess we got a plan, Sally. Mary, we'll talk when we get time, okay?
Okay.
Okay, with that, I think that concludes my report, unless someone has something to report. I did get an update. Chief Bornasian was listening in. Condolences to the family of the firefighter from Laramie. He passed away last week from COVID. Been in intensive care and in a lung machine since last summer. All right, thank you, everyone. With that, we are just a few minutes behind, but I think we need to take a break, commissioners. All right, so let's get back here at 5 after 10, 10:05, okay? And we'll pick up on our first action item, which is budget request filings by Ms. Berry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
shut this door?
Get your pillow out.
Thank you. I'll call this meeting back to order. Our first business and action is tab D, fiscal year 2022 budget request filing. To present that is Ms. Berry. So good morning again. Welcome again.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners again. This morning, I'm just presenting the funding request. And this is required by state statute 16-4-104. It says on or before May 15th, the budget officer shall prepare a requested budget for each fund and file the requested budget with the governing body. So this is just to comply with that state statute. So I included in your packet the list of fiscal year 2022 budget requests. So this is what we have received for funding request. It is just a list as it is just complying with that state statute. There is no comparative information here that is to come. All of the requests from the outside agencies and the component units are currently on the end drive, and I will send you instructions on how to get there. I plan on having all the departments and elected official budgets on there by tomorrow. So you should be getting an email tomorrow with all of that information, and then I should have comparative information to you next week, but it takes a little bit of time to get all that together. But just to meet this statutory requirement, I am presenting the requests today.
Thank you.
I had one more question. Do any of you want a copy of all of the requests on paper? All of this will be on the end drive.
Wally's not
Does
here.
anyone want a paper binder like this? You do, Mary? Okay.
Oh, wow.
I will do one for Mary. Any
Yeah.
other takers?
But sometimes,
The legacy of Wally lives on.
I know.
Okay, so I will do one. Anyone else want one? Roy, you don't want one? Lauren? No?
Nope.
Okay, well, if you change your mind, just email me and let me know and I can make one for you. It'll be just a little bit bigger than this because I don't have all the departments in there. This is just the outside agencies and component units,
light.
so. But all of the information will be on the end drive, so you will be able to access
Okay.
all of that information.
Thank you. Now,
So-
this is a formality by statute, so
Yes.
doesn't set anything in stone.
No, just a list
Very
of the requests.
Questions for Bonnie?
Yeah,
Commissioner
Mr.
Lloyd?
Chairman. Hey, Bonnie, I think I got a little bit of information on this from Sally, but the events complex shows no request.
That's correct. So I did not receive their funding request form until after this was due. I have received it now. So their request is $2,180,309.
Will you repeat that one more time?
$2,180,309.
Thank you.
So it's just such a short turnaround from the time these are due until I have to get this information in. So they had not submitted that to Cindy yet by the time we got that. So
Roy, I thought that was part of the cuts you talked with them about.
Yeah. that's a
I
good
thought
one.
Larry was just doing us a great favor, but then I thought, I don't think so. So,
Think again.
Okay, other questions, commissioners? Next steps after this, Ms. Berry?
we will have a budget workshop following the next meeting. So in 2 weeks from today, I'll get you some comparative information next week. So you'll have a chance to look at that. And at the workshop in 2 weeks, you'll decide who you want to meet with. We'll have workshops following the next few commissioner meetings
So
until we
Decide the order.
finalize the budget in
Okay.
late June. So,
All right, very good. Thank
so
you.
you'll have the opportunity to reduce requests, do whatever you want. If any of you want to speak with me, or if any of you want additional information, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm always willing to provide whatever information you want for budget. So please let me know if there's anything additional that you would like.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, now we don't have to take action on this, do we?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Berry. Up next, tab E, County Reserve Budget Investment Policy Discussion. And here to present that is Mr. Slaughter, our treasurer, and also Mr. Davis, our assessor. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As you will remember in March.
You point out or introduce yourself again, please. And who you're with.
Yeah,
Yeah, give it again.
I am
Even though
Rob
doctors
Slaughter,
did it.
the
Come on,
Sweetwater
I'm just-
County Treasurer.
I know, I don't get you.
In our meeting in March, we discussed where the commission would like to move in setting the permanent reserves. And at that time, it was basically left at the commission to think about that for a little while. And at the request of the chairman, I'm back to try and get a finalization of that, have a discussion a little bit more in keeping with where we believe you may want to try and decrease your expenditures to try and meet that goal. And then the last thing that I'd like to speak with you today is once again, something we talked about previously, and that is formalization of our investment policy. So before we get into the discussion, I think the commission wanted to have the best information available on what our valuation was going to be for this year. I believe Mr. Davis has that information now, and I will turn it over to him, and then we'll talk about it after that.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. Mr. Davis, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. I am Dave Davis, the Sweetwater County Assessor, just in case you were going to ask. What I want to talk to you today about, and I'm going to be very brief because Rob needs more of your time than what I do today. Okay, I sent you 2 documents last week, and they were the valuation estimate with the minerals that we've always had, the spreadsheet here. And what I want to talk to you about today is the other number, the one that's highlighted in yellow. And basically the Cliff Note version of this is a moving target. Okay, so the way we get this information is actually out of our software. You can see we have technical difficulties or technical improvements coming. What we end up doing is plugging in all of the mineral values to come up with the best estimate. And we've always done that because minerals are the biggest part of our valuation. Well, as the mineral numbers have declined, our locally assessed dollar amount is becoming much, much more important. So what I wanted to do today was just kind of familiarize you with this other document. Okay, and this is what's called the abstract summary. And just in case we can't get the stuff up, that's this document here. And what it basically does is break up the value into what I call, or what we call abstract codes. Okay, and abstract codes are basically boxes for the value, whether they be residential, vacant land, commercial, industrial, minerals. They come in all kinds of different categories, but they're all tabulated here in our software. And then when we get the mineral values in June, we put them all together. What I want to talk to you about, just like I said, this is a moving target. And in fact, it moved Friday. We had an amendment to an appraisal on one of our industrial facilities that actually did change that value. So the number you received from me last week showed that the valuation was going to be down like down 386 million or 385. And as of this morning, it's closer to 386 million. Okay, so it's going the wrong direction, but it could still bounce and go the other way. One of the other pieces to this valuation puzzle is the utilities that come in from the Department of Revenue. They're state assessed as well. And that's another piece of this number. Now, so when you do the math and look, it almost looks like we're off about $280 million in here, but we're not. We do the math based on the total valuation from the year before. So the numbers are sound. If you have any more questions on this, we can talk about them. Like I said, Rob needs more of your time today than I do. But if you want an additional presentation on this abstract summary, how this appraisal stuff works, where these numbers come from, the timeframes, I would be happy to do that at a later date. Or if you have an interest, if you want to come in and just sit down with me, I can do it that way as well. So it's kind of whatever you guys want. But at this point, if you don't have any questions, I will turn the microphone back over to Rob and let him continue with that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Davis? Your thoughts about a little learning session over this summary at a later date? Very much so. I think probably, so we have time, might be after our budget.
Sure.
To understand it better.
Absolutely. I think that would be great. That's what I was kind of hoping for, because
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty dry. It's very, but it's something if you want to know, or you're interested at least in hearing and being more familiar with, I'd be happy to do that.
Love to hear it. I
Okay.
think it's something we
good.
should know. All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. You're yielding the floor to Mr. Slaughter.
I will, 2 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm out.
Mr. Chairman, I'm still Rob Slaughter. I'm still the Sweetwater County Treasurer. And if you will remember from our discussion in March, what we had basically come to was the valuation that Mr. Davis had presented, which was reflecting a $385 million decrease in value for this year. That equated to about a $4.8 million decrease in our 12 mil, if I remember correctly. And so in trying to formulate our budget, working within parameters of a new strategic plan, we thought it would be appropriate for you to try and come up with that reserve number that you would like to have. As you'll remember, our current reserves are roughly $34 million. And at the end of the presentation, which I had done using the numbers that Mr. Davis had provided at that time, we were looking at about a $13.5 million deficit in the budget that we had moving forward. We had talked at that point in time, my recommendation was to look at potentially doing a reserve in the amount of about $18 to $22 million. Ms. Berry was recommending possibly a number somewhat less than that at $15 million. And you wanted to think about that and then come back to me with that number so that we can work forward and we can start once again looking at some new investments of those funds also. So I would request at this time, we get back into that discussion and possibly come up with a final number for that. And then once we've come up with that, I think it's appropriate to have another discussion a little bit about how we move forward to try and get to that number with the budget for this year. And then, as I say, then the investment policy discussion after that. So.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Commissioners, questions?
What do you feel? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I
Okay,
speak?
Commissioner Tillman?
What do you feel comfortable? I mean, what would you recommend to us?
Well, as I stated, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tolman, as I stated in that presentation that I did at that time, I felt the number was 18 to 22 million roughly. Now, things have changed a little bit with respect to that due to the American Rescue Plan. As you well know, we are going to be receiving $8.2 million over the next 2 years, which will help with our funding. As Representative Baker spoke on that today, that money will be coming into us roughly within the next 60 days. We should be receiving the first payment on that. And then a year from now, we'll receive the second payment. My thinking would be that some of that money could certainly be used to offset some of the human service agencies, component units, things of that nature, which would be appropriate for that. It would allow you then over the next couple of years to wean those budgets potentially and get to a much lesser amount, which is being funded with those non-essential services and work back towards our essential services. So I still believe, you know, the bigger issue here, and this is something that we really need to emphasize, is not the one-time funding that we're getting. It's the fact that we're looking at a $13.5 million deficit, and that's going to be continuing. Now, certainly over the last 4 months, we've seen increased pricing in oil and gas. In talking with the Trona industry last week, production is really up. The Trona industry is coming back maybe a little bit quicker than even they had anticipated. Their price is still significantly down. So I believe, as we talked in the presentation that I did, we will see a bump in valuation for fiscal 22, or excuse me, it'll be fiscal 23. What that will be, you know, I don't know, but certainly with the information that once again, Representative Baker shared this morning, what we're seeing, and then the increased price that we're seeing on those commodities, I think it's pretty safe to say without a big change right now, we will see an increase in valuation. But that was reflected in the numbers that we had talked about in that last meeting also. So I would stick in that, you know, 18 to 22 million dollar range. And that would be kind of where I would like to see it targeted. I think that would give us a little cushion. There are some other things in the mix that may come into play on this, and we'll be talking about that over the next few weeks, I think, on some of those issues. Some of them we can't really talk about right now. So I hope that answered your question, Commissioner Tolman.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
What do you think when you say Trona is up? Is it, I mean, nowhere near where it was pre-COVID, but just higher than expectations for this time in recovery? Or do you have any idea?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have an idea. Some of it I can't share at this point in time. I've been sworn to secrecy.
No worries.
I believe that production has come up significantly more than they anticipated. I believe that we will see in the near future production levels that are similar to what they were pre-COVID. From what we're hearing, I believe we will see increased activity out in the Trona patch fairly soon. And the big key in this is, once again, the price. The price has not come back yet, and they're waiting for that. I think that they anticipate it will be soon. They will be seeing a bump in price. And once they've done that, I think we'll see a significant increase in Trona. I do not believe that the value for 23 will be what it was for fiscal year 21 by any means, or for fiscal year 20. But I think possibly by fiscal year 24, we could be at that level or even higher with what we're seeing. So.
Thank you. Questions, commissioners? Rob, when you were talking here, we bring into play the rescue money. That 8.2 million is soft. We still have to deal with that wide gap of revenue versus expenditures. And with that in mind, granted that money, however it's chosen to be spent, if it were impacting those agencies, you still end up, when the soft money goes away, with a gap. We just don't know how big a gap. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So we still need to work towards addressing the gap because we don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Chairman, once again, that's the ultimate goal in this is to decrease our expenditures. And we have to do that over time. But as I said, I think using some of this money in the interim, while we're looking at doing that, it would give the commission time to talk with some of these boards and agencies, let them know we have less money available. We are going to be able to fund you at a higher level than we anticipated, potentially because of some of this money. We will probably be able to do some of that next year, but that money will dry up. And at that point in time, unless we see, in looking at this, it would take a $1.1 billion increase in our valuation to get our revenues back in line with where our expenditures are. Are we going to see that in the near future? No, we're not. Now, could it be 100 million or possibly 200 million over the next couple of years? Yeah, certainly could. But that's not going to get us anywhere near what we need to get to balance our revenues. And the board has expressed that. You'd like to get to a balanced budget. To do that for this budget this year, you would have to cut $13.5 million. I don't think that that's something, that you can probably do. I think it's something you work towards. Certainly, that's what our reserves are in place for, and that's the way you have addressed this in the past. I think you work towards that, and that's where my advice will come. Once this number is set, at that point in time, I'll kind of lead you to where I think maybe you want to go with this budget, and then what I would see you would want to potentially do in the next couple fiscal years budgets also.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask?
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
What's our latest, best reserve number right now?
Well, it was $34 million. Now, obviously, there were some amendments
And some more
today. It was 34 million and change. So I would say 34 is a good number, just a good round number. And that's, once again, Commissioner Smith, that's what we would anticipate we would have at the end of this year if all of the money that we budgeted in revenues and expenditures were what we anticipate.
Sure.
Very good. Thank you. Other things, commissioners?
To make it quick, I think I feel comfortable having looked at this with a $20 million reserve consistently, but not in any way spending that reserve this year, but over time, over the next 2, 3, whatever years, to keep it around 20, but certainly not saying, woohoo, then we've got,
Take it all the way
we
down
got
to
14
20
million this year to balance our budget. Yeah, that's good,
Oh.
no, but some portion of that, yes, but I'm comfortable with about 20 million is from the reading and the looking I've done.
Before we go through, let me ask this question before we get a consensus on where we want to set that at. As I look at our general fund reserves, I see a number of accounts or line items within it: cash carryover, reserve for future operations, economic development infrastructure, capital replacement, reserve for election. It goes on with 2 or 3 or 4 others. Wouldn't it be practical to clean up that account as well as soon as we establish? Or should we clean it up before we establish, Rob?
I believe once it's established, once you come up with that number, we want to probably sit down and allocate that into possibly 4 different line items, something of that nature.
Go through them and clean them up, okay? All right, so thank you. So going forward, we'll set the balance where we'd like it and our reserve amount. And then I would expect us to come back and look at those present accounts and have a conversation as to what they are, but they may have to be researched. And the reason I say this is we want to make sure that not any of that money, Rob, may be part of a referendum from the past on a 6 penny or something. So we want to watch carefully as we move through that and make sure we do the right things with it, if that makes sense.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Bonnie and I have kind of talked about a little about this and kind of coming up with what we believe would be appropriate for those. I think we can come up with that and come back to you and handle that.
All right. Other questions before I go on? Okay, with that, Commissioner Smith believes 20 mil. All right, who'd like to go next?
Well,
Commissioner Lloyd.
plus that keeps both Bonnie and Rob happy. It's within the wheelhouse of both of theirs. And I don't want to make either of them upset. So that's my thinking.
Good call. Good call. All right, Commissioner Lloyd?
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. I think one of the big points is we need to come up with a plan within the next 2 to 3 years to have our balances, our expenditures and our revenues balanced. And I think one of our mistakes we made in last year's budget was using too much of our reserves to balance it, which made our deficit much bigger this year. We need to start chewing into that. And I almost wonder if we should, I know we can't necessarily do a 2 or 3 year budget, but almost view this budget as a 2 to 3 year budget and telling organizations, hey, this is where we're going to go this year, but next year, this is what it could look. This is where it's going to look like. And if we have to do significant cuts to organizations, departments, entities within the county that receives funding, it gives them a year and a half. And if for some of them, we could even go out 3 years, 2.5 year cushion to either through attrition or finding different funding to be successful. But I really believe we need to move that direction. I think the restoration money is huge. I think the fact that we are really blessed to have such a large current reserve, but we can't let that detrail us from getting to that bigger picture. And this may have to create some bigger discussions within how we provide services within the county, what services are the most important inside for core government, component government, and the outside entities as we get there. My number is a little bit different. I usually agree with Rob a lot. It's hard to say that out loud, but I don't want to see our reserves below 25 million. And my reason for that is, even though it is the economics is has better projections in the future, it's still not significant, and we don't know. And we don't know when we're going to hit with something. Are we going to get hit with another circuit court building? Are we going to get hit with a major catastrophe that we have to have that extra money in there? And I think if we get below that 20 million and we go into an emergency situation, it doesn't take far to really put ourselves in a bad spot. I also feel comfortable at that 25, 27 million because with some of the CARES Act money, that lessens some of the blow we need to go there. But I really think we need to look at that. Well, I'll be honest, one of the reasons I would be willing to dip into some of the reserves too would be some employee stuff. Doc, you did talk, Chairman Wendling did mention cleaning up those accounts and some of our savings accounts. And I think one of the accounts we need to look at is an employee fund. So we put some money in there. So if there's it's a bad year, there's money to, make sure we can help with health insurance or whatever to help protect some of our employees. Because I think that's one of our biggest investments we make here. I guess the last thing too is, would be for me, I do see some better economic forecasts in the future because we do have some big projects coming through. I think the fact that Jenner and Genesis are still moving forward with expansions show that they do believe Trona really is on the rise. Otherwise, they wouldn't be taking those big risks and those huge expansions. And that you know, we've seen other expansion projects come out. We have the Gateway project still rolling. So there is a lot of stuff that will bring some economic growth to our community, short term and potentially long term. But, you know, like you said, Rob, it's, you know, when we start to think about our budget and what we're facing, well, the last time you guys presented, you and Dave shared between 2015 and today, our taxable revenue is down $1 billion. I mean, when you stop to think about it, that's huge. And when you said, you know, we got to make up $1.1 billion, I wouldn't want to bet on making that up anytime soon, even in a great boom year that we're used to. So a couple things, I guess, to end my thought is I'd like to see the reserve stay around 27 million. We're willing to go down to 25. I really want to take a look at this budget as a 2 to 3 year cycle. And with a goal of in the end of 2 years or the end of 3 years, we are balanced. But I also want to make sure we're using some of this CARES Act money to really work infrastructure and some of those things that are vital for the success of this community. And as Doc alluded to earlier, finding ways to balance our economy and to provide some stability to our economy. And I think that could be where some of that focus goes. So that's where I sit.
25?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Toman?
Well, I was thinking 20, but after listening to the profound discussion by Commissioner Lloyd, we are getting 4.2 million in. If we only go to 20, basically we're allowing ourselves to fill our deficit totally from our reserve account and not really making any cuts in the budget. So is that right?
No, actually, you would still be making a significant cut. And
Even-
you would still be able to make a significant cut and still do that. You wouldn't have to use all of that American Rescue Plan money to do that. So you would be cutting expenditures pretty dramatically under what we'll be talking about if you were to go either 20 or $25 million.
Well, and I agree with Commissioner Lloyd, we should get a 3-year projection out and start telling our entities that, okay, we cut you 15% this year. Next year, we're going to cut this much more and this much more and to 0 or whatever. So I would say 25 sounds good to me.
Thank you.
With
25?
some pain, there's going to be some pain
Okay.
involved.
Commissioner Shanefield?
So I originally was a little bit higher at like 28, 30. I'm willing to go down to 25. I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Lloyd said, and I agree with the 3-year, which is part of why we started talking about strategic planning and, you know, trying to really look at this holistically and longer term. So we're not cutting people last minute and putting everybody up in arms last minute and giving these entities the opportunity to really dig in and do what they can and take the time to do a good job with it instead of it being a last minute budget thing. So I'm good with 25.
25? Very good. Oh, that's 3. 25, 1 at 20. What am I talking about?
What do we even need?
Why are we even here?
Yeah, I don't even know.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I fully agree with 25. Just because we set our reserves at 25 doesn't mean we take them from 34 down to 25
Yes.
this year. We still need to hold non-obligated statutory funding agencies to a different level than the obligated ones. Because we are obligated to fund some of those in statute. Other ones we're not. Soft money will go away. We need to have that gap narrowed as possible. And with the state basically coming out this morning from the governor saying things look better fourth quarter than the previous had, no more state cuts. My answer to the governor question is, okay, if no more state cuts and things are looking that good, is he going to reestablish those dollars to cities, towns, and counties that were part of the cuts? I already know the answers to that, probably not. But we also can't be in a position that if the state is cutting services, that the county is expected to pick them up because they're not important to the state. How can they be important to other arenas as well? So with that, perfectly fine with the 25. But that does not mean we spend our reserves down to that. That just means we're going to hold ourselves to 25, whether it's this year, next year, or until we change it. I'd like to have this discussion every year. Rob,
Mhm.
that's fair enough on the reserves. The other thing I would like to go back to as commissioners is when this budget session's over in July, we establish our budget, I'd like to have, I think the right people who can come forward and help us projecting our budget are probably Rob's office, Bonnie, as well as our department heads and that type of thing. So there would be an opportunity to maybe have them come in and possibly project exactly what Roy, you're talking about, and Lauren as well, and Mary for 3 years out. So we can get ahead of this ball game rather than playing from behind the 8 ball. So I fully agree with that, Rob. So let's at this point in time, we have an agreement that our reserves are going to be held at 25 million. Very good. Next thing will be is for you and Bonnie to come back and let's clean up that present reserve account and get things categorized correctly. Ms. Berry and Rob, commissioners agree with that?
I agree.
Okay, and then in July, we'll hopefully we'll get a presentation, because honestly, I think Roy and Lauren, everybody sitting at this table may know that staff has been working on that and talking about it, and it's time to let them bring it forward. That's what we pay them for, and we need to listen. Fair enough? All right, first part's done.
With that in mind, Mr. Chairman, on to the second part of this, speaking with respect to our strategic planning and setting the budget for this year. With that in mind, keeping the balance at $25 million, I would suggest that you look at a 15% decrease in funding from what your fiscal 21 budget amount was. If you'll remember in the presentation, which I did, we did a 10% decrease, we did a 15% decrease, and then at Commissioner Shanefeld's question, we brought forth a 20 and 25% decrease also. In looking at that, if you were to look at that moving forward in your budget, it would be an $8.2 million cut from the funding last year. In anticipation of our carryover, once again being roughly $1.5 million, which we don't know, Ms. Berry may have a better number than that now, I don't know. We have not spoken on that again. But using the number we had in March, we would be looking at funding the deficit with about $5.6 million of reserves, which would take us down to about $30 million in reserves at the end of this year. Then addressing this again in your next budget. Obviously, we had talked once again about a potential increase in valuation for the next fiscal year. We had addressed that. By doing that, I believe you can decrease the amount of funding that you would use from reserves for the following fiscal year and target that $25 million in doing so. So I think that would be the appropriate place to go next. So roughly, I think you'd be looking at about an $8.2 million cut to this year's budget to do that.
With that, questions, commissioners?
Is that including the ARP is in there, the rescue plan money?
No,
No.
that is not including those numbers.
Okay, so run this by me again. Decrease of 8.2 million in the budget from last year. And then how much from reserve did you think?
5.6 roughly. Excuse me, that 5.6 includes the 1.5 million of carryover.
Okay.
So the reserves would actually be 4.1.
It's a lot better than I thought, honestly. It's not great, but it's.
No, it's not right. And the thing, go ahead. Other commissioners, please. Anybody? Keep marinating, all of you. The one thing I would say, Rob, is, when we talk about percentages, whether it's 10, 20, 15, I can go to one or two budgets, whether it's elected officials, whether it's department head, and that type of thing, that all they have in their budget is salary, benefits, and pens and pencils that amount to $100. They have no capital. So in some of these budgets, it's going to be absolutely very difficult to get the percentage. So I think overall, our plan has to be, as I'm reading it, is looking at the total dollars and strategically looking at other people's budgets. Some of them, we may ask 20% cut because it's available or more, because we have some that cannot cut it all without going into personnel.
That would be exactly my read on this, Mr. Chairman.
So I would like, from my standpoint, fellow commissioners, we don't deal just in percentage. We take a look at the whole picture. I think there's a couple entities out there that have hefty reserves and could handle a 20 to 25% cut this year, as well as another 20 to 25% cut next year. You know, it's just my experience of looking at where they're at. They're not the county's bank. Last time I looked, the treasurer decided who our banking agents would be. It's not outside agencies, nor is it component units or any of the other places. So that's the thing that we need to look at and be very cognizant of. And keep in mind also that all these entities received much CARES money, and we have to watch the numbers and see what the requests are coming. So what did I miss, Rob?
I think you've covered it very well, Mr. Chairman. I think you've got a target. I think you've got a strategy moving forward. I think, once again, the concept of doing this over a multi-year period, 2 to 3 years, makes all the sense in the world. I think, you know, addressing this annually, you know, trying to get to those target numbers and then trying to maintain those is a much better way than what we've done things in the past.
Okay. Commissioners, other comments, other questions for Rob?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah, just a comment. I think you're right. I think one of the interesting things I think that I learned as we went through the budget process and met with departments and elected officials and outside entities was exactly what you said, the difficulty in really doing an across the board cut that's effective, because a lot of our departments truly are the cost as employees, probably 85 to 87% as employees. So it really causes us to really look at, you know, how we have to do it more surgical because of that and some of the entities. And I also think one of the things that we have to look at is some of the services we provide, what are the most important, which statutorily or, like you said, are essential. And then, and I hate to be the guy that says this out loud, but then we have to really start taking a philosophical look of outside entities. You know, we're not statutorily required to cover a lot of them, and we've always done it because we can. And which ones are the highest priority? Which ones do we need to fund? And, you know, in some cases, which ones do we need to continue to fund? And I know this is going to be a big budget session because those are some huge questions that we have to look at to get to a difficult situation, to get to a difficult answer. So I think we have to be willing to really look outside the box. One of the things we haven't talked a lot about is on the outside of this, how do we look at bringing in more revenue? How do we invest the money to bring in revenue? And I think that's another important discussion that has to happen throughout this process. But I think the five of us are going to be more than capable of figuring it out. But we do have our proverbial work cut out for us because it's going to be a difficult venture to get there.
Thank you. Other comments, commissioners? Very good. Did we answer that, Rob?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Okay, on to the third thing. And prior to that, just wanted to refer back once again to the American Rescue Plan and let you know once again, we are anticipating $4.1 million that will come immediately to us, $4.1 million next year. In a call last week with NACO, there were 3 things that counties need to do to make sure that we are going to receive that money and are ready to do that. I've spoken with Christina. We needed to have our DUNS number available. We needed to have a SAM registration number for the federal government. We need to have a contact, our chief elected officer. In most cases, they're determining that should be the board chair. So I don't know how we have set that up, but we needed to have that, and we needed to have the routing and account number of our primary bank available. And once Treasury has all those guidelines in place, which as of yesterday, they still did not have that, we should have all of that available. We could submit and we will get that money relatively quickly, I believe, at that point. So just to touch that. And then some other good news. It's always nice to have a little bit of good news. They're also anticipating that the federal government will be releasing $1.5 billion to counties, which are public lands counties that receive monies through the PILT program and the Secure Rural Schools program. They have not determined how much will go to each of the counties with respect to that yet, but that's an additional funding mechanism that we will be receiving at some point also.
Thank you, Rob. I didn't mean to interrupt. Anything else?
No. Then on, if no questions
Let me,
on that.
no, wait, I want to go back to the,
Yes, sir.
any questions on the pill or on the 1.5 billion? My question to you is, have you heard of any guidelines coming with that 1.5 billion for public land counties?
Nothing to this point in time.
Okay. Thank you.
But they are working on it.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay, last order of business, and hopefully this will go fairly quickly. At the end of the year last year, I had approached the commission with our Sweetwater County investment policy. And by statute, we have to have an investment policy on hand. We have to offer it to anyone who is selling potentially bonds to us or to the banks that we are keeping funds publicly in, things of that nature. And at that time, I presented the investment policy with a few substantive changes and just some cleanup things of that nature. And the commission at that point in time wanted to review those things and get back to me. We have not done that. And so what I've done, I've provided for you in your packet a copy of our, and I've changed it now rather than being the Sweetwater County investment policy to the statement of the Sweetwater County statement of investment policy. I've highlighted in red those changes, which we have. There's really nothing substantive in this at this point in time. If you would like to go through them line by line and discuss them, we can do that. I don't believe we probably need to. I've reviewed this with Attorney De Leon. He and I have gone through it completely. And I would suggest, if you're agreeable, that the board adopts this as our new statement of investment policy. It will then be reviewed per the agreement of this policy at the same time annually that we approve the depositories for public funds. So annually, you will be reviewing this. And if there are any changes that need to be made, you could do it at that time. But other than that, I would like to see you adopt this as our statement of investment policy. And I would be glad to answer questions on it too.
Let's go to questions first, okay? Commissioners, any questions? None questions. Then I will ask our county attorney if he's had an opportunity to review it. Nothing else. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. One question I have would be is when I look at page 7 that shows the investments to be made in the following manner. That's considered part of the policy as well, right?
No, Mr. Chairman. I would, at this point in time, what my desire would be for the commission to look at that last section, the last page that I have there for you and address it. That is a suggestion that I had made with how we would actually invest those funds in the future. This is a very conservative approach. You may have a little bit different idea on how long we should be going with some of the investments or things of that nature. I would like for you to look at that and then address this at the next meeting. And we would incorporate that at that point in time to the investment policy as direction for the treasurer moving forward in investing those funds in the future.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll ask that you're on the agenda again next meeting to approve the policy with this inclusion.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, I'm hopeful of getting feedback from the commission with respect to that also. So if you have, prior to my coming back to that meeting, if you have something, if you'd send me an email that I can bring back to the commission at that time. So this may be what you want to do. You may believe that we want to invest with change, this was set forth with the concept of having $20 million as our reserve balance. With having $25 million as our suggested balance, you may want to increase the percentage that could be going out longer term potentially. But that's something you need to make that decision on.
And
And
but whether it's 20 or 25, this is your recommendation.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, this isn't necessarily a recommendation. This is just an idea
An idea.
of what you could do.
Very good. Okay. So, questions, commissioners? All right, then let me back up for a second and I'll refer to our Assistant County Attorney. Rob, are we approving the policy today?
I hope so, yes, sir.
Hope so. So my question becomes good. Do we need first, second, third readings on policies such as this, or Mr. De Leon?
So, Rob, my understanding is that you were going to do this the next week. You'd rather do it today?
Well,
Just pages 1 through 6.
yes, I really would like to see, because we've been trying to do this for a long time, I would like to see the overall statement of investment policy adopted today.
Okay.
Then the guidelines for how we invest those funds discussed at the next meeting and then incorporated with that after the following meeting.
That makes sense.
So page 7 would be guidelines.
So has there been any, this was presented in the packet? That
In the
information?
packet, yes, it is.
Okay, then I think that you can move forward. And as far as a first reading, I think you're able to move forward with everything today. I do want to talk to Rob about there are options in terms of that last page. You could make the policy to fit within a specific structure at one meeting, or you could make specific recommendations as those investments are determined. So you wouldn't have to, at the next meeting, say, this is the structure that we want. You could wait until an actual investment was going to be presented, and then you can make that determination at that point in time. So,
Mr. Chairman, the only issue with that is typically when we're buying an investment of that nature, it's time sensitive. And so we wouldn't be able to wait for a commission meeting and say, I would like to come and, this is something that we would like to potentially take out 10 years. We want to invest $1 million out 10 years or something of that nature, because it would be long gone before I could get to the commission to do that. So having some, and once again, this is to help me not have to read your minds with respect to the duration on keeping some of these securities and protecting the county with respect to that.
You sure blew that today, didn't you, trying to read our minds?
Couple times.
Okay, very good. So with that, I see what you're leaning to, having the guidelines attached to the policy as soon as possible to help you get things done in a timely manner. So going back to the legalese end of it, it's a policy that's been updated. So do we first read it, have a first reading on it, and then a second reading or third reading, or do we just adopt the updated policy and then the next meeting approve the guidelines?
I think you can make the motion today and you can adopt it today.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so we'll go back to fellow commissioners. Any questions regarding the statement for policy? No questions? Commissioner, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield.
I'll make a motion to approve the Sweetwater County Statement of Investment Policy, pages 1 through 5 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the statement policy as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion, commissioners? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Commissioners have an assignment to look over the guidelines, and if you don't hear anything, present them as you see right there.
Super. Thank you very much, Commissioners. One last thing. I spoke with Bonnie earlier in the week or last week. We would like to sit down with you as part of your budget hearing in the next meeting on the 18th. If we could take about a half hour to discuss the implications of Senate File 60, the new law with respect to the monthly collection of
Ad valorem.
ad valorem tax. So if you could plan on scheduling a half hour for us during that workshop, I think it would be beneficial for all of us moving forward.
Would it be beneficial to kick off the budget workshop with that?
It certainly wouldn't hurt because there will be several changes which are
Okay.
being made. due to
And
that.
it would be okay to make it part of the workshop and kick it off as the first item.
You bet.
Okay, and then from that standpoint, it'll be the rest of whatever Bonnie puts together for us on the budget. Is that correct, Bonnie? Commissioners, you okay? All right, thank
Fantastic.
you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Slaughter, appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioners. Well done. Next up, tab F, and that is retention of a tax appeal hearing officer. And up with that is Miss Lane, our county clerk. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Winling and Commissioners. As you're aware, at the last meeting, we had to remove the agenda item that discussed the retention of a tax appeals hearing officer due to some unforeseen and unfortunate circumstances. After speaking with several attorneys with the help of the county attorney's office, I would like to recommend Mark Harris of Harris Law Firm. He is out of Uintah County. Mr. Harris is an attorney and a city judge and has worked with the county of Uintah to help in their tax appeals process in the past. He is also available during the timeframes that have been set up for Sweetwater County through the assessor's office. And so that would help us out greatly since we are a couple weeks behind now on doing this recommendation. If you so choose to retain Mr. Harris, I would need a motion to retain him to represent Sweetwater County during the 2021 Board of Equalization tax appeal process and for the chairman to sign any necessary documents.
Very good.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Questions, Commissioners? What's Mr. Harris's first name?
Mark,
Mark, thank you.
Mark W.
Mark W.
of Harris Law Firm.
Very good.
Commissioner Lloyd knows him.
Oh, does that mean,
Taught me
is
I
that a
actually-
conflict of interest?
I actually had that discussion with Attorney De Leon. We haven't had a recent relationship because I've been away for a long time, but I can disclose he taught me Sunday school, so he has good morals and ethics.
What happened to you then?
I said Mark had good
I
morals.
know.
and
That's
ethics.
the,
But no, yes, I did check with Attorney De Leon to make sure that wouldn't be a conflict of interest. And because we haven't had a close relationship in over 5 to 10 years since I've left Evanston, longer than that wouldn't be an issue.
Very good. No, I was just kidding when I threw that out there, but.
No, you got to be careful though.
I hear you.
We do.
All right, Commissioners, what's your pleasure regarding retaining Mr. Mark W. Harris of a Harris Law Firm out of Evanston for our 2021 Board of Equalization Hearing Officer?
I'd make that motion.
Got a motion by Mr. Commissioner Lloyd. Is there a second?
And allow the chairman to sign. Second.
I thought that was part of the motion that Roy missed. It was a second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Looks like
Thank
got a
you.
hearing officer. Late, but we got one. All right, next up, tab G is National Economic Development Week proclamation, and here to present that is Miss McDonald with Sweetwater Economic Development Coalition. Good morning, Kayla.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I am here today to thank you guys for your support for Economic Development Week. We have partnered with Western Wyoming Community College and Sweetwater Travel and Tourism to do an education, kind of a capture of Sweetwater County doing education, economic development, and tourism. So I have brought Executive Director from the Travel and Tourism, Janessa Meredith, with me here today, and we're going to show you the video And then Janessa has some economic impact numbers that we would like to share with you. So,
Very good.
and then if we can do a picture after with the proclamation, I'd appreciate it.
All right, thank
So-
you, Kit. Ms. Janessa, come up and introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. As you said, I'm Janessa Meredith. I'm the Executive Director of Sweetwater County Travel and Tourism. And this is actually Travel and Tourism Week, May 2nd through the 8th. So it was a great partnership with SEDC and with WWCC to draw attention to both weeks and Community College Month, which was in April. I just wanted to share a few statistics with you on the power of tourism and economic impact for Sweetwater County. We just had the Dean Runyon report released for 2020. And what we know is in 2019, tourism generated over $160 million in economic impact. And in 2020, it generated 122.6. So it's down about 24%. Could have been worse. A lot of areas of the country really saw a dramatic impact. 24% is what we saw in tourism. In 2020, 1,270 locals were employed in the travel and tourism industry in Sweetwater County. That's down about 200 from 2019. And total visitors to our area, we usually see about 600,000 visitors to Sweetwater County. And in 2020, we saw 483,770 visitors to Sweetwater County. So down about 24% overall. So Sweetwater County really is impacted significantly by tourism, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And we want to show this video for you.
Thank you.
Go ahead and start it here. Cindy, do we need to do anything on this? Start it over.
Not even showing audio on this. Mm-mm.
There you go. Thanks.
It's not nearly as cool without the audio. I know, right? Not the same.
quietly in Sweetwater County, Wyoming. And although quiet, there is an engine running quietly in Sweetwater County, Wyoming. And although quiet, this engine is fierce. It is an engine that provides us all with a chance to learn more, see further, and soar higher than we ever thought possible. Encouraging us to take risks, break barriers, and grow from deep within. This engine is vital to the future of Sweetwater County, and it's hard at work every day. It gives us the good fortune of having high-paying jobs where we can put in an honest and rewarding day's work and take good care of our families. All while exploring where dinosaurs and outlaws once roamed, with no borders or boundaries, making memories to last a lifetime. This engine is investing in our residents, making us stronger, smarter, and better able to take on anything this world brings. This engine is not limited by rain, wind, or drought, or deterred by unlikely hoods, old reputations, or doubters of any kind. This engine is treating strangers like friends, and when they visit our area on vacation, they experience a high desert landscape and warm hospitality like no other. They're able to see for 100 miles, breathe crisp, clean air, and experience what makes the West so wild. This engine is working hard to ensure that we all remain Sweetwater strong. Take heart, Sweetwater County, and know that good things are happening right here at home.
Thank you all very much for letting us share that. Do you have any questions at all?
Questions for Janessa? Before you walk away, I don't know if we've seen you here in the chambers since the National Byway has been granted.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, and you need to mark your calendars. The Flaming Gorge Green River Basin Scenic Byway, which is the Wyoming half of the Flaming Gorge Scenic Byway. We were considered a state scenic byway, and there's 3 levels: state, national, and all-American road. The Wyoming side has been the state scenic byway. The Utah side has been a national scenic byway. That national designation has allowed them to apply for federal funding to build turnouts. The next level up, I said, is an all-American road. In 2020, the first time in 10 years, they opened up that application process. And I was able to put in an application, work with a consultant, update our corridor management plan, and we were able to get that designation of All-American Road, which is a really, really big deal in the fact that it opens up the opportunity to apply for federal funds. The Utah side of the Scenic Byway, with their national designation in the past, they submitted to build out 18 turnouts around that southern half, and they were approved for federal funding, and that's how all of those turnouts were built on the southern half of the Flaming Gorge Byway. We now qualify to apply for those same funds for the Wyoming side. So we're going to be working with the Forest Service, our partners in Wyoming, and our partners in Utah to designate sites, build out the plans, the engineering, and apply for federal funding to build out different amenities around our half of the byway. So super, super excited about that. It's a really, really big deal. I worked on it in 2007. It's been a really long haul, and we were really excited to see the application process open as well. If you'll mark your calendars for June 9th at 4 p.m. I haven't sent out the invitations yet. I just decided this a couple days ago, but we're going to be doing a ribbon cutting of that All-American Road at the Flaming Gorge Gateway sign on Highway 191. We are going to be doing that on the 9th at 4 p.m. We're going to invite all of the elected officials, and then KUTV2 News out of Salt Lake City will be there to cover it as well. And we'll be featuring our Flaming Gorge tour as well. So we'll have the tour bus there, be answering questions about the tour, doing the ribbon cutting, having that featured on KUTV2 News out of Salt Lake City. So really, really exciting. I hope you can join us for that.
Thank you, Janice. And I just wanted to congratulate you for all the work you did on that. It was a heavy lift, huge lift, and you stuck with it. And I guess the end game is Sweetwater benefited because of your hard work, and we really, really appreciate that. And
Thank you.
and I can see with the other things that are going to complement that's going to be huge economic opportunity for the county. So thank you for your work, and thank your board for allowing you to work so hard on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And let me know. We would love to host you all on a Flaming Gorge tour. I had emailed about it, so
Yep.
just let me know what date. We'll plug you in and get you on that tour as well.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
carrying on. Sorry, I had to throw that in, Kayla. All right, very good. So next steps, Kayla. No, let me. We do, yes. I wanted to pull it up, look like again. Mr. Shanefield? Yeah, would you like to read that?
I would love to, as soon as it
Please.
pulls up on my computer.
Yeah.
Do you have one? My computer is still spinning.
You get so hung up and doing
I get
everything
it.
that we're doing, we forget about the good stuff. Okay, if you would read that, please, Commissioner Shanefield, and then we'll ask for a motion to approve.
Of course. Whereas the International Economic Development Council is the largest professional economic development organization dedicated to serving economic developers, and whereas the International Economic Development Council provides leadership and excellence in economic development for communities, members, and partners through conferences, training courses, advisory services, and research, in-depth publications, public policy advocacy, and initiatives such as the Accredited Economic Development Organization Program and the Certified Economic Developer Designation. And whereas economic developers promote economic well-being and quality of life for their communities by creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers stimulate and incubate entrepreneurism in order to help establish the next generation of new businesses, which is the hallmark of the American economy. And whereas economic developers are engaged in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, provincial, and government and federal governments, public-private partnerships, chambers of commerce, universities, and a variety of other institutions. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their regions. And whereas economic developers work in the county of Sweetwater within the state of Wyoming. And now there it be resolved that the chairman and commission of the county of Sweetwater County do hereby recognize May 9th through the 15th, 2021 as National Economic Development Week in the county of Sweetwater, and remind individuals of the importance of this community celebration, which supports the expansion of career opportunities and improving quality of life. Be it further resolved that the county commission is authorized and directed to transmit and appropriate copy of this resolution to the Sweetwater County Economic Development Coalition and the International Economic Development Council. In testimony whereof, as the chairman of the commission of the Sweetwater County of Sweetwater, have hereunto subscribed their names and have caused the official seal of the county of Sweetwater to be hereunto affixed to on this day of May 2021.
Thank you, Commissioner Shanefield. Commissioners, with regard to this proclamation and authorizing chairman to sign, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield,
I would like to make a motion to approve this proclamation and allow the chairman to sign.
got a motion to approve and allow the chairman to sign. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Tolman. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And you wanted a picture, right? Okay. Couple sit down or three standing? Yep. Three You want this in the picture or not? Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Kayla. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, commissioners, with that, we'll continue to move on with our agenda. And next up will be the tab H, which is the agreement for services between Sweetwater County and the United Site Services. Here to present that is Mr. Legursky, our Public Works Director. Good morning, Mr. Legursky, again.
Good morning, Commissioner or Chairman Wendling and commissioners. And you guys need to stop making fun of ravens, okay? Just, they are smart. I'm just telling you that.
Totally.
They're as smart as chimpanzees, which I don't know where I rank on that schedule, but they're there. So they've been frustrating. But what you have before you is an agreement between United Site Service and Sweetwater County. The reason why we're doing this is it was really evident during COVID. Road and Bridge is getting charged one rate. Facilities are getting charged a different rate. Parks are getting charged a different rate. Everybody's getting charged different rates because we're not under one contract with them. And then we were also, because we didn't have contracts with them during COVID, we were basically on their spot market. So when they decided to up a fee because of COVID for hand sanitizer, which they've always supplied, we started getting charged $19 a month for hand sanitizer. And then they would tack on another fee because they were scared their guys were going to get sick, and they would go out and tack on another fee for us, and we couldn't do anything about it. So I finally got a hold of the regional manager here, who actually used to be in Rock Springs, and he helped us develop this with the county attorney's office. So we have locked in prices through April 1st, 2022, but it also allows us to renew it for 5 years, every year. So we can take a look at it and get it under one contract. It also allows us to have some recourse with them when they aren't doing the things that we think they should be doing, like out in the parks when they're not dropping the porta johns off in the right spots, or when they're getting blown over and we keep calling them and keep calling them. There's a recourse because we do have a contract with them. So I think it's a good deal. Like I said, it locks in price. It does a lot of things for us, but it consolidates everything under one contract.
Thank you, Mr. Legursky. Questions for Mr. Legursky, commissioners?
I
Commissioner
do
Toma?
have one, I noticed at the county picnic grounds you had those. So are you using the porta potty type thing now instead of our permanent facilities?
Yes, the permanent facilities, due to COVID, were one reason, but also because some of them have some problems
Yeah.
with leaking roofs and vandalism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The nice thing about this is we don't have to clean them, they clean them. And if they blow over, we just call them up and they come fix them.
Other questions, commissioners? You'd commented that the county attorney's office had looked at it.
Yes.
They're fine?
Yeah, Mr. De Leon and I have been working
Okay, very
I don't know,
good.
for about 4 or 5 months on this. It's
Yeah.
been a long time.
And you'd made the comment it's for 5 years, but it could be reviewed.
It's going to be reviewed every year. I'll bring it before you guys, but it can be extended up to 5 years.
Okay, very good. So that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you. Other questions, commissioners? What's your pleasure regarding the service agreement? Service agreement between Sweetwater County United Site Services and allowing the chairman to sign?
I'd move that we approve that, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith to approve and allow the chairman to sign. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Up next is the co-op agreement between YDOT, City Green River, Sweetwater County for the Green River Urban System. Mr. Legursky, I yield the floor to you.
So a couple months ago, you guys remember we did this exact same thing for Rock Springs. Basically what we're doing is we're updating the cooperative agreement between YDOT, the City of Green River, and us for the City Green River Urban Systems. The Urban Systems is a federal program that based on population we're part of, and it all goes into a fund, and then the Urban System Committee gets to decide on the funding for this. The City of Green River Fleming Gorge study was done out of this fund. Partial funding of, and I say partial because it's a large job, of the interchange road going over the interstate was done because of that. The feds give us money If you're over a certain threshold, between two thresholds, basically 10,000 people in a city and not up to 50,000, because once you get into 50,000, city of Casper and Cheyenne are actually MPOs, so they're a totally different calculation. So what this is just reaffirming the cooperation agreement that hasn't been done in 20 years.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Legursky, commissioners? No questions. What's your pleasure, commissioners, with this co-op agreement with YDOT and the city of Green River and Sweetwater County and allowing the chairman to sign? Mr. Commissioner Shanefield.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended and restated cooperative agreement between YDOT, the city of Green River, and Sweetwater County for the Urban Systems Program in the Green River urban area, and allow the chairman to sign all necessary documents.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as well as authorize chairman to sign all necessary documents. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on, tab J, which is the fiscal year 21 asphalt overlay project award. Mr. Legursky, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this is the award of a bid to Kilgore Companies doing business as Lewis and Lewis Inc. for our asphalt overlay contract. We do these, we didn't do one last year, but we typically do one every year. It's part of our preventative maintenance program for our over 200 miles of asphalt paved roads. This one is actually out on Aspen Mountain, the 3.4 miles of Aspen Mountain. We're going to be milling off the surface and adding surface to it and redoing all the delineator posts and everything like that. And then using the road-to-mill tailings for the next mile of dirt road to incorporate with that to give it a better surface.
Very good.
So.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions regarding the project? With no questions, commissioners, what's your pleasure in allowing the chairman to sign?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Smith.
I move that we award the bid for the 2021 asphalt overlay project to Kilgore Companies, which is doing business as Lewis and Lewis Inc., in the sum of $1,129,651.22, and authorize the chairman to sign all necessary project documents.
Very good. Thank you. We got a motion to approve and authorize chairman to sign the project documents. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Up next, tab K, we have the fiscal year 21 Justice Center Grinder Pump Project Award. Mr. Legursky.
Thank you, Mr. Wendling. Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Lloyd know a lot about this. They've actually seen pictures. I didn't send it to everybody just because most people shouldn't have to look at stuff like that. But what this is the main lift station at West Side takes the effluent water from the jail, the whole detention facility. They've had problems with it since the jail was in inception. Typically, they have to clean out that lift station once a month. Depending on uses at your jail, they have to clean it out twice a month, sometime once a week. Depending, they found just about everything imaginable. It's amazing what can get flushed down a toilet. That's all I'll say. And it causes them a lot of problems, causes them a lot of cost. So part of this, what we're doing is we're actually going to put a grinder pump inside of a vault outside in between the purchasing department and the detention facility to handle all the sewer. And what it does is it grinds everything down to less than 2-inch particle size so they can actually pump it through their system. This same system has been in existence for about 30 years. It's actually used in a lot of big facilities, Rikers, those big facilities. So it's a good system. It works well. It'll just help out the downstream user and prevent them from having to raise rates.
Okay, very good. Questions, commissioners? No questions? What's your pleasure regarding the grinder pump project award?
Mr. Chairman. I did
Commissioner
have a
Shanefield.
question. Why was the amount provided by Jackman Construction so much less than the other three? The other three were kind of
Yeah, we
similar
were all
prices.
together. Jackman, myself, and High Desert were kind of all together in the same way we had thought about the project. After talking to Matt Jackman and everything, he's going to do it a little bit different. I thought of casting it in place would be the easiest way to do it. He's actually going to pump around for about 2 days, pump from one manhole to another manhole, which is totally fine. The flows aren't there, and order a precast one and actually put that in place. So he thinks he's going to save a little bit of money there.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Very good. Good question. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, Commissioners? No more questions. What's your pleasure, Commissioners, regarding this project award and authorizing the chairman to sign?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd,
I would so move.
have a motion by Commissioner Lloyd to approve the project award and authorize chairman to sign all documents. Is there a second?
I can sign. Second? Mary
Second,
Tillman?
second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion?
Just one question.
Go ahead.
This will be, complete this in the 21?
We're going to
budget?
try. If not, I got it under CIP, under my budget.
Very good. Thank you. Good question. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next agenda item is a request approval to restaff a vacant position in the Road and Bridge. And I believe here to present that is Mr. McLean, our HR Director, along with Mr. Legursky, our Public Works Director. Mr. McLean, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. Interesting morning for all of you. Those are some good topics and a little more optimism than we're used to. So
Yeah,
maybe
thank
we're turning the corner. This is an issue that we've discussed a few times before the board, so I'll just recap so we bring everybody up to speed. We had an employee who left employment in the Road and Bridge Department on February 16th of 2021. That vacant request was brought before the board March 2nd of 2021. The board at that time denied the request. At the April 20th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Lloyd, and with agreement of the board, agreed to rehear that request to restaff that vacant position. In your board packets or cost summary of that replacement, and any differences in costs would just be based on health insurance. At that original meeting in March, we had discussed a little bit about the numerous changes that have been made over the years in the Road and Bridge, especially with respect to staffing. We have done quite a bit over that time to consolidate management, which ultimately was consolidated with Gene and cutting multiple levels of supervisory personnel, as well as reducing staff. And basically, since 2009, 2010, we've reduced 12 positions in that department. The savings, as you might imagine, are significant in that regard. So that's what kind of brings us today back full circle to, again, take a look at that vacancy. And Gene, I don't know if you want to talk about any of the operational issues.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Go ahead, Mr. Legursky.
So yeah, as Gary noted a little bit, one of the things about that, and I've sent you guys this, but I just kind of want to reiterate it. Back in 2009, total payroll, used payroll for Road and Bridge was $2,782,484. 2020 used payroll is $1,944,500. It's about a 30% reduction, $837,984. That's just comparing the two. That's not adding cumulative. It also takes into account that we've had pay increases, step increases, insurance and everything, and we're still down $837,000. So pretty proud of that. But as you can see, we're right on the cusp of not being able to do things. The County Road and Bridge Department, we take care of 1,200 centerline miles of road. In those, we have 134 cattle guards, 3,200 culverts, 18 bridges, and 1,400 signs. So it's quite a bit. Every person helps. I don't mind reducing staff when it comes to early retirement, stuff like that. We did that, but when we have somebody expectedly leave, it kind of puts us in a bind. And I just appreciate your support on this.
Thank you, Mr. Legursky. Questions for Mr. Legursky? Anything there, commissioners? I will say this, Mr. Legursky, that since you've come aboard with us, you have been a very big supporter of working to reduce government, as well as many of our other departments and other areas have as well. And not only going with that, you've accepted the challenge. Sometimes it's an opportunity to also reorganize how your department looked and how it looked to what it looks like today. And to me, that is a great kudos to you, to the other directors as well, because when you start reducing things, and then we start looking for people who can assist in areas, whether it's out of planning, zoning, Eric's department, or out of HR to help cover phones and that type of thing. So when we talk about reducing government, I think for the most part, a real good example with the numbers that you've shown, and willingness to reorganize your department and do things differently rather than reload the shotgun the same old way. I commend you for that, and have watched that occur over the years. And I truly believe that would not have changed without your leadership in that Public Works Department. So I want to thank you for this. I think this is a legit request. And with that, I'll yield the floor if any other commissioner has a question or comment. With that, commissioners, what's your pleasure regarding this request and authorizing the chairman to sign?
I would like to make that motion. I'm very sorry you had to wait for 3 months.
We have a motion to approve and authorize the chairman to sign. Do we have a second?
I'm not as sorry, but I'll second.
Second. Okay.
What did you say?
I'm not as sorry, but I will
So
second.
we have a second by Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Got your guy. Not much, no worries. We should be able to find a good equipment operator out there.
Would think so with the way the economy is right now.
Okay, very good.
Oh my gosh. Finding somebody that fits our, like with everything, you got to find somebody that meshes with the
Okay.
way that we manage and the way that we do stuff. So
Make sure they want to ride for the brand, please. Thank you.
thank you.
You bet. With that, moving on, I believe the next thing we have, for the good of the order, commissioners, anything you want for the next meeting or anything you wish to bring up at this point in time for the good of the order?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I'd like to note and put a challenge out to the other commissioners that on break, I secured one donation for a door prize. So I'd like to see their timeliness on that too. Big thanks to Robbie Lee and New York Life for donating a door prize.
Very good.
I
Thank
would
you.
like to accept that challenge because I also secured a donation over break.
I've got you. I've got you both beat. I committed to 2 of them already. I just haven't told anybody about it.
Oh,
now
I've
if you
already
wanna
got
play-
3.
Hey, I've got you covered. So anyhow, no, that's great.
Glad
That's
you
a
guys are
good
working
challenge.
because I'm
Huh?
not. Glad
Oh,
they're all working
but
because
you
I'm
know-
not apparently.
But you know, I saw this coming a lot sooner than everybody else did. So I did go to work on it right away. So, but anyhow, Mary, you and I will get
Well,
to meet.
Smith, we don't want any gift certificates from Deer Trail either.
None? It's a nice place.
How about one?
Mary, we can,
Mary.
we've got
All
a
right.
lot of your type right there.
Okay, with that, commissioners, I think as we, anything under other, there isn't, so we'll move forward. We'll go into executive session after we get a motion, but we'll go into exec session for two things. First of all, scholarships. And we go into that for the purpose of, we'll be talking about students and some of their confidential information that we thank them for allowing us to look at, so we can choose our 3 scholarships and our 3 alternates. And then we'll also stay in executive session for legal. I'm sure there'll be action taken after executive to award those scholarships. I don't know if there'll be anything coming out of legal, but we'll wait and see. So with that, commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for scholarships and legal.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Shanefield. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.